The moment I will never forget is sitting across from my husband in his corner office, watching him slide a termination letter across his glass desk toward me like I was a stranger who meant nothing. 8 years of marriage, 10 years of knowing each other, and he couldn't even look me in the eye. His jaw was set, his expression cold, and in that moment, I didn't recognize the man I had loved since I was 23 years old. "Sign it," Gregory said, his voice flat and emotionless. My hand trembled as I stared at the paper. This wasn't how this morning was supposed to go. I had walked into Morrison Enterprises at 8 o'clock, coffee in hand, ready to present the quarterly financial report I had spent 3 weeks preparing. Instead, security had escorted me directly to the executive floor, past my own office, past curious stares from colleagues I had worked alongside for years. "Gregory, what is this?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. I hated how weak I sounded, how confused. "I don't understand." "Don't play innocent, Sienna." He finally looked at me, and what I saw in his dark brown eyes made my stomach drop. Disgust. Suspicion. Contempt. "The evidence is clear. You've been embezzling from the company for months." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What? That's insane. I would never." $200,000 is missing from the operations account. Gregory leaned back in his leather chair, the one I had helped him pick out when we moved into this building 5 years ago. "Money transferred to an offshore account registered under your name. We have the bank statements, the transfer records, everything." I shook my head so hard my vision blurred. "That's impossible. I didn't open any offshore account. Gregory, you know me. You know I wouldn't steal from our company." "My company." His correction was swift and sharp. "I'm the CEO. You work for me. And now you're fired." The distinction cut deeper than any knife could. Yes, Gregory was the CEO. Yes, his name was on the door. But I had been there from the beginning, working 16-hour days, sacrificing weekends and holidays. I had been his partner in every sense of the word, both in business and in life. Or so I thought. "Who told you this?" I asked, my brain finally catching up through the shock. "Where did this evidence come from?" Natalie brought it to my attention. Gregory glanced toward the door, where his assistant stood with her arms crossed, watching me with barely concealed satisfaction. She noticed irregularities in the accounts and investigated. She found everything. Natalie. Of course. The woman had been Gregory's assistant for 8 months, hired to replace dear old Margaret who had retired after 20 years. From day one, Natalie had been overly friendly with Gregory, always finding reasons to stay late, always volunteering for projects that would put her in his orbit. I had mentioned it once, cautiously, and Gregory had laughed it off, calling me paranoid. Now she stood there in her tight red dress and perfect makeup, looking at me like I was trash she was waiting to see hauled away. "This is a setup," I said, standing up from my chair. My legs felt weak, but I forced them to hold me. "Natalie is lying. I need to see these records, the actual proof." "The proof is irrefutable," Natalie interjected smoothly, stepping forward with a manila folder. "Bank statements showing transfers made from your computer, during hours you were logged into the system. Your digital signature on the transfer authorizations. Would you like me to go through it all again?" She laid the folder on the desk and Gregory gestured for me to look. I opened it with shaking hands, my eyes scanning documents that looked official and damning. There was my name. Transfer authorizations with dates and times. Bank statements showing an account I had never opened, had never even heard of. "This is fake," I whispered. "Someone forged these. Gregory, please. You've known me for 10 years. Do you really think I would steal from you? From us?" For a second, just a brief flicker, I thought I saw doubt cross his face. But then Natalie placed her hand on his shoulder, a gesture so familiar and intimate that it made my skin crawl, and his expression hardened again. "I think people do desperate things," Gregory said. "Maybe you needed the money. Maybe you have debts I don't know about. It doesn't matter why. What matters is that you betrayed my trust, and I can't have a thief working in my company." "Your company?" I repeated bitterly. "After everything we built together." "You can either sign the termination paperwork and leave quietly," Natalie said, her voice sickeningly sweet, "or we can call the police and have you arrested for embezzlement. Mr. Morrison is being generous by giving you the choice." I looked between them. Gregory, the man I had married 8 years ago in a small ceremony on the beach. The man I had supported through his father's death, through the risky business decisions that had paid off, through every high and low. And Natalie, a woman I barely knew, who had somehow convinced my husband that I was a criminal. "You're sleeping with her." The words came out before I could stop them, the truth suddenly so obvious it was blinding. "That's what this is really about. She wants me gone so she can have you and the company and everything I helped build. Gregory's face flushed red. How dare you make accusations when you're the one who stole from me? This has nothing to do with Natalie. This is about your criminal behavior. We have a professional relationship, Natalie added, but the smile playing at the corner of her mouth told a different story. I picked up the pen, my hand steadier now. Anger was replacing shock, burning through the hurt and betrayal. If Gregory believed Natalie over me, if he couldn't see what was right in front of his face, then there was nothing more to say. I signed the termination letter, my signature bold and clear. There, I said, pushing the paper back across the desk. I'm done. Security will escort you out, Gregory said, already looking down at other papers on his desk, dismissing me like I was nothing. You have 15 minutes to clear out your office. Take only personal items. Everything else belongs to the company. Everything else belongs to you, you mean? I corrected. Don't worry, Gregory. I don't want anything that reminds me of this place or you. I walked out of his office with my head high, even though inside I was screaming. Natalie followed me, along with 2 security guards who treated me like a criminal. My co-workers watched as I was paraded past their desks, and I saw pity in some faces, confusion in others. A few looked away, unable to meet my eyes. My office felt smaller than usual as I grabbed my few personal photos, my coffee mug, and the plant Brielle had given me last year. 8 years of work, reduced to a cardboard box I could carry with one hand. The security guards watched my every move, making sure I didn't take anything company-related, as if I would risk taking a stapler after being accused of stealing $200,000. Time's up, one of the guards said after what felt like 5 minutes, not 15. I took one last look at my office, at the view of the city I had admired every morning, at the space where I had worked so hard for so long. Then I walked out, through the lobby, past the reception desk where I had greeted visitors hundreds of times, and out the front doors of Morrison Enterprises. The autumn air hit my face, cold and sharp. My car was still in the parking garage, but I didn't go get it. I couldn't face the underground darkness, the enclosed space. Instead, I started walking, clutching my box, my purse banging against my hip. My phone buzzed. A text from Brielle. Lunch today? Need to hear about that big presentation. The presentation I had never given. The quarterly report that now sat on my desk, probably being thrown away by Natalie. I stopped walking and stood on the sidewalk as people rushed past me, all of them headed somewhere important, all of them with jobs and lives that made sense. I called Brielle. She answered on the first ring, her voice bright and cheerful. Hey girl. You done already? That was fast. I need you, I said, and my voice cracked. Can I come over? Sienna? What's wrong? The cheerfulness vanished, replaced by concern. Where are you? I just got fired. The words felt surreal. Gregory fired me. He thinks I stole money. Brielle, I need help. Stay where you are, she commanded. Tell me exactly where you are and I'm coming to get you right now. I looked around, trying to orient myself. I had walked 4 blocks without realizing it. Corner of 5th and Maple. By the coffee shop. I'm 10 minutes away. Go inside the coffee shop, get yourself something sweet and wait for me. You hear me? Okay, I whispered. And Sienna? Whatever happened, we're going to fix it. I promise. But as I sat in the coffee shop, staring at a hot chocolate I couldn't drink, I wasn't sure anything could be fixed. My husband thought I was a thief. My career was destroyed. And somewhere in that glass tower I had just left, Natalie was probably celebrating her victory while Gregory remained completely blind to the truth. I pulled out my phone and looked at my wallpaper. A photo from our last anniversary, Gregory and me at a fancy restaurant, smiling at the camera. We looked happy. We looked in love. But maybe it had all been a lie. Maybe I had been the only one who believed in us, while he had already moved on to someone new, someone who whispered poison in his ear and destroyed everything we had built. My hands shook as I changed the wallpaper to a plain black screen. I couldn't look at that photo anymore. I couldn't look at the man who had just thrown me away like garbage without even giving me a chance to defend myself. Brielle arrived in a rush, her braids flying as she scanned the coffee shop until she found me. She was wearing bright blue scrubs, having clearly come straight from her shift at the hospital. She grabbed me in a hug so tight I could barely breathe, and for the first time since walking into Gregory's office, I let the tears come. Tell me everything, she said, pulling back to look at my face. Every single detail. And then we're going to figure out what to do. So I told her. About the termination letter, about the fake evidence, about Natalie's smug smile and Gregory's cold indifference. About how the man I married had looked at me like I was a stranger he couldn't wait to get rid of. Brielle listened to every word, her expression growing darker with each sentence. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment, her jaw clenched. "That absolute fool," she finally said. "I never liked Natalie. From the first time I met her at that company party, I knew she was trouble. And Gregory? I can't believe he would do this to you." "He thinks I'm a criminal," I said, wiping my eyes. "How do I come back from that?" "You don't come back," Brielle said firmly. "You move forward. And the first thing you need to do is call my brother, Cameron." Brielle's older brother was a lawyer, specializing in corporate law and fraud cases. I had met him dozens of times over the years, always at family gatherings and holidays. "You think I need a lawyer?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "You absolutely need a lawyer," Brielle confirmed. "If Gregory fired you based on fake evidence, that's wrongful termination. And if Natalie created this evidence, that's fraud and probably a dozen other crimes. Cameron will know exactly what to do." She pulled out her phone and dialed before I could protest. I heard Cameron's voice on the other end, professional and calm. "Cam, I need you," Brielle said. "It's about Sienna. Gregory just fired her on false embezzlement charges, and I think his assistant set the whole thing up. Can you meet us?" There was a pause, then Cameron's voice came through clearer as Brielle put the phone on speaker. "I can be at my office in 30 minutes. Bring Sienna. We'll figure this out." "Thank you," I managed to say. "Don't thank me yet," Cameron replied. "But Sienna, listen to me. Don't talk to Gregory. Don't try to explain yourself or defend yourself to him. Don't answer his calls or texts. From this moment on, all communication goes through me. Understood?" "Understood," I said, though the thought of not speaking to my own husband felt strange. But then he wasn't really my husband anymore, was he? Not in any way that mattered. Brielle drove us to Cameron's office, keeping up a steady stream of reassuring words that I barely heard. My mind was spinning, trying to process everything that had happened in the span of 2 hours. This morning I had been the chief financial officer of Morrison Enterprises, wife to the CEO, living in a penthouse apartment with a man I loved. Now I was jobless, accused of embezzlement, and sitting in a lawyer's office trying to salvage what was left of my life. Cameron's office was neat and professional, all dark wood and leather chairs. He gestured for me to sit, his expression serious but kind. Cameron was older than Brielle by 5 years, with the same warm brown eyes and steady presence. "Start from the beginning," he said, opening a legal pad. "Tell me everything that happened, every detail you remember. Names, times, what was said, who was there. All of it." So I went through it again, forcing myself to remember every painful detail. Cameron took notes, occasionally asking questions to clarify or get more information. When I described the evidence Natalie had presented, he frowned. "Did you get copies of these documents?" he asked. I shook my head. "They wouldn't let me. Security was watching me the whole time." "That's suspicious right there," Cameron noted. "If they really had solid evidence of embezzlement, they would have gone straight to the police. The fact that Gregory gave you the option to resign suggests he's not actually confident in the evidence, or he's trying to protect someone." "Protect Natalie, you mean?" Brielle interjected. "Possibly," Cameron agreed. "Sienna, I need to ask you some direct questions. Do you have any offshore accounts?" "No." "Have you ever transferred company money to personal accounts?" "Never. Everything goes through proper channels, audited and documented." "Do you have access to the bank accounts in question?" "I have access to all company accounts as CFO, but every transaction requires dual authorization. Gregory has to approve anything over $10,000. Cameron's pen stilled. "Wait. Every transaction requires his approval?" "Yes. It's been company policy since we incorporated." "So these alleged transfers of $200,000? Cameron leaned forward. "Gregory would have had to approve them." The realization hit me like ice water. He would have seen them. Or someone with his access codes would have. "Or someone forged his authorization," Cameron said grimly. "Either way, this evidence against you is full of holes. The question is, why did Gregory believe it?" "Because Natalie is sleeping with him," Brielle said bluntly. "Obviously." I flinched but didn't disagree. The alternative was that my husband was simply that eager to believe the worst of me, which was somehow even more painful. "We need to prove your innocence," Cameron said, "and we need to figure out what Natalie's real game is. But first, Sienna, I need to know what you want." "What do you mean? Do you want to fight to get your job back? Do you want to clear your name and save your marriage? Or do you want to walk away?" I sat there in silence, the question hanging in the air. This morning the answer would have been obvious. Of course I would fight for my marriage, for my career, for everything I had built with Gregory. But now, after seeing the coldness in his eyes, after being treated like a criminal by the man who was supposed to love me, I want a divorce, I heard myself say. I want to prove I didn't steal anything, and then I want out. Brielle reached over and squeezed my hand. Cameron nodded slowly, making a note on his legal pad. Then that's what we'll do, he said. Starting tomorrow we build your case. The penthouse felt like a museum when I returned that evening, full of beautiful things that no longer meant anything. Everything was exactly as I had left it that morning, my coffee mug still in the sink, Gregory's newspaper folded on the kitchen counter, the bed unmade from where we had slept side by side just hours ago. But it all felt wrong now, tainted by what had happened. I stood in the living room, looking out the floor-to-ceiling windows at the city lights below. This apartment had been my dream home. We had moved in 3 years ago, after a particularly successful quarter that had netted Gregory a bonus large enough to afford the down payment. I had decorated every room, chosen every piece of furniture, hung every piece of art. Now it felt like a cage. My phone buzzed. Gregory. I stared at his name on the screen, my thumb hovering over the answer button. But Cameron's words echoed in my head. Don't talk to Gregory. All communication goes through me. I let it go to voicemail, then immediately blocked his number. If he had something to say to me, he could say it through my lawyer. Instead, I did what Cameron had suggested and started gathering evidence of my own innocence. I pulled out my laptop and logged into my personal cloud storage, where I kept backup copies of all my work files. Every financial report, every transaction log, every audit document from the past 3 years. If Natalie had fabricated evidence against me, I would need my own proof to counter it. As I worked, I started noticing things I had missed before. Discrepancies in the company accounts that had appeared over the last 6 months. Small transactions, nothing that would raise red flags individually, but together they painted a picture of systematic theft. And they all coincided with Natalie's hiring. My hands shook as I documented everything, taking screenshots and organizing files into folders. This was what Natalie had been doing. She had been stealing from the company carefully and methodically, and then she had framed me for her crimes. But why? Was it just to get rid of me so she could have Gregory? That seemed almost too simple, too petty. There had to be more to it. I was so absorbed in my work that I didn't hear the front door open. Suddenly Gregory was standing in the living room, his tie loosened, his face haggard. Sienna, he said, and I nearly jumped out of my skin. What are you doing here? I demanded, closing my laptop. I live here, he said. This is my apartment. Our apartment, I corrected coldly. We're still married, Gregory. Or did you forget that when you fired me this morning? He flinched. I need to talk to you. I have nothing to say to you. My lawyer said all communication has to go through him. Your lawyer? Gregory's eyebrows shot up. You hired a lawyer? What did you expect me to do? You accused me of embezzlement and fired me without even letting me defend myself. Of course I hired a lawyer. Gregory ran his hand through his dark hair, a gesture I knew meant he was stressed. Well, good. He deserved to be stressed. I didn't want it to go this way, he said. If you had just admitted what you did, if you had explained why. I didn't do anything wrong, I interrupted, standing up. The evidence Natalie showed you is fake. She's been stealing from the company, and she set me up to take the fall. That's ridiculous. Natalie has been nothing but loyal. Natalie has been sleeping with you, I shot back. Don't bother denying it. I see the way she looks at you, the way she touches you. The way you let her. There's nothing between me and Natalie, Gregory insisted, but his eyes shifted away from mine and I knew he was lying. Get out, I said quietly. Sienna. Get out of this apartment right now, or I will call security and have you removed. You can't kick me out of my own home, Gregory said, his voice rising. Watch me. I pulled out my phone. I'm still your wife. I still have rights. And if you don't leave immediately, I will make this as public and ugly as possible. We stared at each other for a long moment. I saw the calculation in his eyes, weighing his options. Finally, he turned and walked to the bedroom, emerging a few minutes later with an overnight bag. This isn't over, he said at the door. Yes, it is, I replied. Cameron will be sending you divorce papers soon. I suggest you get your own lawyer. The look on his face was almost comical. Shock, disbelief, and something that might have been hurt. As if he had the right to be hurt after what he had done to me. You're really going to throw away 8 years of marriage over this? He asked. You threw away 8 years of marriage when you believed a woman you've known for 8 months over the wife you've known for 10 years. I said. Now get out. He left without another word and I locked the door behind him, then slid down to the floor, my legs finally giving out. I had stood up to him. I had kicked him out. But the victory felt hollow. Brielle arrived 20 minutes later, letting herself in with the spare key I had given her years ago. She took one look at me sitting on the floor and immediately sat down beside me, wrapping her arm around my shoulders. He came here? She asked. I nodded. I told him I'm filing for divorce. He didn't believe Natalie was setting me up. He didn't believe me at all. Then he's a fool, Brielle said firmly. And you're better off without him. 8 years? I whispered. How did I waste 8 years on someone who thinks so little of me? You didn't waste anything, Brielle corrected. You loved someone who didn't deserve you. That's not a waste. That's just painful. She stayed with me through the night, ordering takeout that neither of us ate and watching movies I didn't see. Just having her there helped. I wasn't alone in this. I had people who believed in me even if my husband didn't. The next morning I met Cameron at his office again. I brought my laptop and all the evidence I had gathered, laying it out for him to review. This is excellent work, Cameron said, scrolling through my documents. You're right. These transactions don't match the pattern of the supposed embezzlement. And if what you're saying is true about dual authorization, then these transfers couldn't have happened without Gregory's access. So either he's in on it or someone is using his credentials, I said. My money's on the latter, Cameron replied. Natalie probably has access to his computer, his passwords. It wouldn't be hard for her to authorize transactions using his account. Can we prove that? We can try. But Sienna, I have to be honest with you. Proving you didn't do something is harder than proving someone else did. The burden of proof is on us, and right now they have documentation with your name on it, even if it's forged. So what do? We request a full forensic audit of the company accounts. We examine every transaction, trace every transfer, and we find out exactly where that money went. If Natalie stole it, the money is somewhere. People always make mistakes. How long will that take? Weeks, maybe months, Cameron admitted. But in the meantime, we file your divorce papers and we make sure you're protected financially. You're entitled to half of everything Gregory acquired during your marriage, including his shares in the company. I hadn't thought about that. The company we had built together, the business that bore his name but reflected years of my work too. I was entitled to half of it. I don't want the company, I said. I just want what's fair. And I want my name cleared. We'll make sure you get both, Cameron promised. Now, I need you to write down everything you remember about Natalie. When she was hired, who recommended her, any strange behavior you noticed, any access she had to sensitive information. Everything. I spent the next 2 hours doing exactly that, filling pages with notes about the woman who had destroyed my life. Natalie had been hired through a staffing agency after a brief interview process. She had excellent references, an impressive resume, and had charmed everyone in the office within days of starting. She was efficient, organized, and always willing to work late or take on extra projects. She was also always around Gregory. Always finding reasons to be in his office, to travel with him to meetings, to stay after hours when everyone else had gone home. I had noticed it, had mentioned it to Gregory once, but he had brushed off my concerns. She's just dedicated to her job, he had said. Not everyone is trying to seduce me, Sienna. But she had been. And she had succeeded. As I wrote, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me open it. Mrs. Morrison, this is Jonathan Pierce. I need to speak with you urgently about what happened at the company. Please call me. Jonathan. Gregory's business partner and best friend since college. They had started Morrison Enterprises together, though Gregory held the majority shares and had bought out most of Jonathan's stake over the years. Jonathan was still on the board of directors and handled a lot of the company's major contracts. I showed the text to Cameron. Should I call him? Not without me present, Cameron said. But yes, we should hear what he has to say. If he has information about what really happened, it could help your case. Cameron called Jonathan back, putting him on speaker. Jonathan, this is Cameron Brooks, Sienna's attorney. She's here with me. What did you need to discuss? Cameron, good? Jonathan's voice came through clearly. Look, I don't know what's going on, but something isn't right about Sienna's termination. Gregory won't talk to me about it, Natalie is being evasive, and the financial reports are a mess. I need to know what really happened. Why do you think something's wrong? I asked. Because I've worked with you for 5 years, Sienna, and you're the most honest person I know. You've caught other people's mistakes, reported discrepancies, and insisted on proper procedures even when it slowed things down. The idea that you would embezzle money doesn't make sense. So either you had some kind of breakdown I didn't notice or someone is lying. Someone is lying, I confirmed. Natalie fabricated evidence against me, and Gregory believed her without question. That's what I suspected, Jonathan said grimly. Listen, I can't help you officially. Gregory is my partner and I have a duty to the company. But off the record, I think you should request that forensic audit. I've been trying to reconcile the accounts since you left, and there are transactions I can't explain. Money moving through shell companies, transfers that don't match any project or expense I'm aware of. Can you document those? Cameron asked. I can try, but I have to be careful. If Gregory finds out I'm helping Sienna, it could destroy our partnership. We understand, Cameron said. Anything you can provide would be helpful, even anonymously. I'll see what I can do, Jonathan promised. Sienna, I'm sorry this happened to you. For what it's worth, I never believed you did it. Thank you, Jonathan, I said, my throat tight. That means more than you know. After the call ended, Cameron looked at me with something like satisfaction. That's good. If Jonathan is noticing irregularities, it means Natalie isn't as clever as she thinks she is. She's making mistakes, leaving trails. We just have to follow them. Over the next 3 days, I barely left Brielle's guest house. She had insisted I stay with her rather than remain in the penthouse, and I was grateful. Being surrounded by her warmth and constant reassurance helped keep the panic at bay. Cameron worked tirelessly, filing divorce papers, requesting the forensic audit, and gathering evidence. I spent hours going through my old files, documenting every meeting, every decision, every email that might help prove my innocence. On the 4th day, the divorce papers were served to Gregory at his office. Cameron had arranged for it to happen during a board meeting, making it as public and embarrassing as possible. It was petty maybe, but I didn't care. Gregory had humiliated me by firing me in front of Natalie. Turnabout was fair play. Brielle brought me the news with barely concealed glee. Cameron just texted. Gregory was served in front of the entire board. Apparently he went white as a sheet and had to excuse himself from the meeting. Good, I said and meant it. But that night, lying in Brielle's guest bed, I let myself cry. Not for Gregory, not anymore. I cried for the woman I had been 4 days ago, who had trusted her husband and believed in her marriage. I cried for the future I had imagined, the children we had talked about having someday, the life we were supposed to build together. All of it was gone now, destroyed by lies and betrayal. But as I cried, I also felt something else stirring. Anger. Determination. A fierce resolve to not just survive this, but to come through it stronger. Natalie had tried to destroy me. Gregory had let her. But I wasn't destroyed. I was still standing, still fighting, and I was going to make sure everyone knew the truth. Starting tomorrow, I would stop being defensive and start being aggressive. It was time to take back control of my life. Cameron's office became my second home over the next 2 weeks. Every morning I arrived at 9, armed with coffee and whatever new evidence I had uncovered the night before. Cameron had assembled a small team to help with my case. A forensic accountant named Patricia, a private investigator named Derek, and a paralegal named Sophie who seemed to work around the clock. The key to winning this, Cameron explained during our first strategy meeting, is not just proving you're innocent. It's proving Natalie is guilty. And to do that, we need to follow the money. Patricia pulled up a complex spreadsheet on her laptop. She was a woman in her 50s with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. I've been analyzing the company's financial records for the past 2 years. There's a pattern here. Small transfers, always just under the reporting threshold, going to various accounts. Individually they look like legitimate business expenses. Together they add up to nearly $500,000. I felt sick. $500,000? I thought Natalie said $200,000 was missing. That's what she reported, Patricia confirmed. Which means she's hiding the full extent of the theft. She probably blamed you for a smaller amount so it would be believable while pocketing the rest. Can you trace where the money went? Cameron asked. That's where it gets complicated, Patricia said, clicking through more screens. The transfers go through several shell companies before disappearing into overseas accounts. It's sophisticated work. Whoever set this up knew what they were doing. Natalie worked at an accounting firm before joining Morrison Enterprises, I said, remembering her resume. She would have the knowledge to set up something like this. We need proof that she's the one behind it, Derek, the private investigator, interjected. He was younger than I expected, maybe 30, with the kind of forgettable face that probably served him well in his line of work. I've been watching her for the past week. She lives in an apartment that costs $4,000 a month, drives a car worth $70,000, and wears clothes and jewelry that would take years to afford on her assistant's salary. How is she explaining that? Cameron asked. She tells people her family has money, Derek said. But I looked into her background. Her parents live in a modest house in Ohio. Her father is a retired teacher, her mother works at a grocery store. No trust fund, no wealthy relatives. So where is she getting the money? From the company, I said. She's been stealing it and spending it. That's our theory, Cameron agreed. But we need concrete proof. Derek, keep watching her. Document everything. Every purchase, every transaction, every person she meets with. Patricia, keep tracing the money. Find out where those overseas accounts lead. Sophie, I need you to pull together a timeline of everything related to Natalie. Her hiring, her access to company systems, her relationship with Gregory. Already on it, Sophie said, typing rapidly on her laptop. I watched them all work, feeling useless. What should I be doing? You, Cameron said, turning to me, need to focus on rebuilding your professional reputation and preparing for the divorce proceedings. Have you thought about what you want to do for work? Nobody's going to hire me, I said bitterly. Not with embezzlement accusations hanging over me. Then don't work for anyone else. Work for yourself. The idea stopped me cold. Work for myself? I had always been part of a team, first at the accounting firm where I started my career, then at Morrison Enterprises. The thought of striking out on my own was terrifying and thrilling in equal measure. You have 10 years of experience as a financial officer, Cameron continued. You have contacts, knowledge, skills. Start a consulting business. Help other companies with their finances. You can work from anywhere, set your own hours, and build something that's entirely yours. That's actually brilliant, Brielle said. She had insisted on coming to the meeting, claiming she needed to make sure her brother wasn't working me too hard. You're amazing at what you do, Sienna. Why give some company the benefit of your expertise when you could be your own boss? I don't know, I said hesitantly. What if it fails? What if it succeeds? Brielle countered. What's the worst that could happen? You're already jobless and getting divorced. You literally have nothing to lose. She was right. The old Sienna would have been too scared to take such a risk. But the old Sienna was gone, replaced by someone harder, someone who had learned that playing it safe didn't guarantee happiness or security. Okay, I said. I'll do it. I'll start my own consulting firm. Cameron smiled. Good. Now let's talk about the divorce. Gregory's lawyer contacted me yesterday. They want to settle out of court. Absolutely not, I said immediately. I want a trial. I want everything out in the open. Sienna, trials are expensive and emotionally draining, Cameron warned. If they're offering a fair settlement, you should at least consider it. What are they offering? $5 million and you sign a non-disclosure agreement about the embezzlement accusations. $5 million was a lot of money. It was more than enough to start my consulting business, buy a house, live comfortably for years. But the non-disclosure agreement meant I could never talk about what really happened, could never clear my name publicly. No, I said firmly. I'm not signing anything that says I can't defend myself. I want the truth to come out. Even if it costs you millions? Cameron asked. Even then. This isn't about money. It's about my reputation, my integrity. Natalie doesn't get to destroy those and then pay me to stay quiet. Cameron studied me for a moment, then nodded. All right. We go to trial. But you need to understand what that means. Your marriage, your finances, your entire life will be examined in court. Every argument you and Gregory ever had, every purchase you ever made, every decision you ever questioned. It will all be fair game. I understand, I said. But I also know I didn't do anything wrong. And I'm tired of acting like I did. Then let's prepare for war, Cameron said. The next few weeks were a blur of depositions, document requests, and legal maneuvering. Gregory's lawyers fought the forensic audit, claiming it was unnecessary and invasive. Patricia fought back with evidence of financial irregularities that couldn't be explained. The judge eventually sided with us, ordering a full audit of Morrison Enterprises accounts. Meanwhile, I started my consulting business from Brielle's guest house. I registered the company, created a website, and reached out to my professional contacts. The responses were mixed. Some people ghosted me, clearly having heard about the embezzlement accusations. Others were cautiously supportive, wishing me luck but not offering any actual business. But a few people I had worked with over the years and who knew my character, reached out with opportunities. A small startup needed help organizing their finances before seeking investors. A nonprofit wanted someone to review their budget and suggest cost-saving measures. The projects were modest, but they were something. I threw myself into the work, grateful for the distraction. Every hour I spent analyzing spreadsheets or creating financial projections was an hour I wasn't thinking about Gregory or Natalie or the mess my life had become. Brielle came home from her nursing shift one evening to find me surrounded by papers, my laptop balanced on my knees, a cold cup of coffee forgotten on the side table. "You need to take a break," she said, gently closing my laptop. "I'm fine," I protested. "I just need to finish this report." "You're not fine. You've been working 16-hour days for 2 weeks straight. You barely eat, you don't sleep enough, and you look exhausted." "Work is the only thing keeping me sane right now," I admitted. "When I stop working, I start thinking. And when I start thinking, I remember that my husband chose to believe I was a criminal rather than trust me. So I'd rather just keep working." Brielle sat down beside me, taking my hand. "I get it. But you're going to burn yourself out. And then what? Natalie wins because you worked yourself into exhaustion?" "Natalie isn't going to win," I said fiercely. "Cameron says the audit is turning up all kinds of irregularities. Patricia found 3 more shell companies that money was funneled through. Derek has photos of Natalie wearing a $15,000 bracelet that she bought the same week a large sum went missing from the company. We're building a case." "That's good," Brielle said. "But Sienna, even when the case is won, even when everyone knows you're innocent, you still have to live with what Gregory did. You still have to process that betrayal and heal from it. And you can't do that if you're working yourself to death." She was right as usual. I had been using work as a shield, keeping myself so busy that I didn't have time to feel the full weight of my grief and anger. But eventually I would have to face it. "I'll try to slow down," I promised. "After I finish this report." Brielle rolled her eyes but smiled. "You're impossible. But I love you anyway." That night, after submitting my report to the startup client, I allowed myself to do something I had been avoiding. I logged into my old email account, the one I had used at Morrison Enterprises. My access should have been revoked when I was fired, but apparently someone had forgotten to cut me off completely. Hundreds of emails filled my inbox, most of them automated reports and internal memos. But one email caught my attention. It was from Jonathan, sent to Gregory 2 days ago with the subject line, "Concerns about recent financial decisions." I shouldn't read it. It was technically corporate espionage, reading emails I no longer had authorized access to. But I clicked it anyway. "Gregory," Jonathan had written, "I need to discuss the discrepancies in the Q3 financial reports. Several large transfers were made from operational accounts without board approval, and I can't find documentation for the projects they were supposedly funding. Additionally, Natalie has been evasive when I ask for clarification on these transactions. I think we need to bring in an external auditor to review these issues before they become a larger problem. Please call me to discuss." So Jonathan was still trying to get Gregory to see reason. And Gregory was apparently still ignoring him. I forwarded the email to Cameron, along with a note explaining how I had accessed it. He replied within minutes, "This is helpful, but we can't use it in court since you obtained it through unauthorized access. However, it confirms what we suspected. I'll reach out to Jonathan and see if he's willing to testify about the financial irregularities he's noticed." The next morning I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Hello? Sienna, it's Jonathan. Do you have a minute to talk?" I glanced at the clock. It was barely 7 in the morning. "Sure. What's going on?" "I need to tell you something, and I don't have much time before Gregory gets to the office. I've been going through the financial records and I found something. Natalie has been systematically stealing from the company for months. She's good at hiding it, but the pattern is there once you know what to look for." "I know," I said. "My forensic accountant found the same thing." "There's more," Jonathan said urgently. "I confronted Natalie yesterday. I told her I was going to the board with what I found. She threatened me, Sienna. She said if I said anything she would claim I was the one embezzling, that she had evidence against me too." "She's bluffing," I said. "She's desperate because people are starting to notice the inconsistencies." "Maybe. But she also told me something else. She said Gregory knows about her and still protects her. She said they're in love and that he's going to divorce you and marry her once everything settles down." The words hit me like a punch to the gut, even though I had already suspected as much. Hearing it confirmed was different. Gregory wasn't just fooled by Natalie. He was choosing her actively and deliberately. "Thank you for telling me," I managed to say. "I'm going to testify," Jonathan said. In your divorce case, in any legal proceedings against Natalie. Whatever you need. Gregory is my friend, but what he's doing is wrong. And I'm not going to stand by and watch him destroy you to protect his mistress. Jonathan, if you testify, it could ruin your partnership with Gregory. Then it ruins it, Jonathan said simply. Some things are more important than business. Have your lawyer contact me. After we hung up, I sat there processing what I had learned. Gregory and Natalie were planning a future together. They were going to wait until the divorce was finalized, let the scandal die down, and then live happily ever after with the company I had helped build and the money Natalie had stolen. The thought made me sick, but it also crystallized something in my mind. I wasn't just fighting to clear my name anymore. I was fighting to make sure they didn't win. To make sure their lies and betrayals had consequences. Cameron was thrilled when I told him about Jonathan's willingness to testify. This changes everything, he said. With Jonathan confirming the financial irregularities and testifying about Natalie's threats, we have a much stronger case. And if he's willing to state that Gregory knew about the affair, that helps establish motive for why Gregory was so quick to believe Natalie's lies about you. When does the audit finish? I asked. Another 3 weeks. But we have enough to move forward with the divorce proceedings now. The trial is scheduled for next month. Next month. In just a few weeks, my marriage would officially end. The thought should have made me sad, but instead I felt relief. The waiting, the uncertainty would finally be over. I'm ready, I told Cameron. Whatever comes next, I'm ready for it. Good, Cameron said. Because Sienna, I think we're going to win this. Gregory called Brielle's house phone at 2 in the morning, 3 weeks after the divorce papers had been served. Brielle answered, her voice groggy and annoyed, then handed me the phone with a look that said she wanted to throw it out the window instead. What? I said, not bothering to hide my irritation. Sienna. Gregory's voice was strained, almost panicked. I need to talk to you. Something's wrong with the company accounts. Then talk to your accountant. Or better yet, talk to Natalie. I don't work for you anymore, remember? Please. The desperation in his voice almost made me feel sorry for him. Almost. The quarterly reports don't make sense. There's money missing, transactions I don't recognize. I've been trying to reconcile everything since you left, but I can't figure it out. That's not my problem, I said flatly. I know you're angry with me and you have every right to be, Gregory continued, talking fast like he was afraid I would hang up. But Sienna, if something's really wrong with the company finances, it affects both of us. You're entitled to half of everything in the divorce. If the company goes under because of financial mismanagement. If the company goes under, it's because you fired your competent CFO and trusted a thief, I interrupted. Call my lawyer if you need to discuss anything related to the divorce or the company. Good night, Gregory. I hung up before he could respond and handed the phone back to Brielle. What did he want? She asked. He's finally noticing that the accounts don't add up now that I'm not there to keep everything organized. I lay back down on the bed. Too little, too late. But I couldn't fall back asleep. Gregory's call had stirred up thoughts I had been trying to avoid. Despite everything he had done to me, I didn't actually want Morrison Enterprises to fail. The company represented years of hard work, not just Gregory's but mine too. Employees depended on it for their livelihoods. Clients trusted it with their business. And if Natalie's theft was discovered, the scandal could destroy everything. The next morning I called Cameron and told him about Gregory's call. He's panicking, Cameron said, sounding satisfied. The audit is probably turning up things he can't explain, and without you there to manage the finances, he's realizing how much he relied on you. Should we be worried about the company's stability? I asked. If it goes bankrupt before the divorce is finalized. We're protected, Cameron assured me. The divorce filing includes an injunction preventing Gregory from selling assets or making major financial decisions that would affect your settlement. He can't tank the company to avoid paying you what you're owed. But what about the employees? The clients? Sienna, Cameron said gently, I understand you still care about the company, but you can't save it if Gregory won't admit there's a problem. And right now, he's still protecting Natalie instead of investigating her. He was right. Whatever happened to Morrison Enterprises now was on Gregory's shoulders, not mine. Patricia called later that afternoon with news. We finished tracing the shell companies. The money from Morrison Enterprises went through 4 different entities before ending up in 2 accounts in the Cayman Islands. One account belongs to a company called Prestige Holdings. The other belongs to Natalie personally. Can we prove she controls Prestige Holdings? I asked. We're working on it. But Derek found something interesting. Natalie's boyfriend, the one she's been texting, is named Marcus Vance. He's a financial consultant who specializes in helping people hide assets. He's been investigated twice for money laundering, though nothing was ever proven. My stomach dropped. So this wasn't just Natalie acting alone. She had help from someone who knew how to steal money and hide it. Exactly. And here's where it gets interesting. Marcus Vance used to work for Gregory's father before he died. He was fired for embezzling, but the family never pressed charges. They just quietly let him go. You think he has a grudge against the Morrison family? I think he saw an opportunity for revenge and profit, Patricia said. He probably helped Natalie set up the scheme, taught her how to cover her tracks. And when they needed someone to take the fall, you were the obvious choice. The pieces were coming together, forming a picture more sinister than I had imagined. This wasn't just about a woman stealing from her employer or trying to seduce her boss. This was a calculated revenge plot, and I had been collateral damage. We need to find Marcus Vance, I said. If we can get him to talk, he might implicate Natalie. Derek's already looking for him, Patricia assured me. But Sienna, people like Vance don't usually cooperate without incentive. He's facing serious jail time if he's caught. He's not going to give up information easily. What kind of incentive are we talking about? Immunity probably. Or a reduced sentence in exchange for testimony. Whatever it takes, I said. I want Natalie exposed for what she did. That evening, I met with my second consulting client, a small marketing firm that needed help managing their cash flow. The meeting went well, and they hired me on the spot for a 3-month contract. It wasn't much, but it was something. My business was actually starting to take shape. As I drove back to Brielle's house, my phone rang. Unknown number again. I almost ignored it, but answered at the last second. Is this Sienna Brooks? A woman's voice, nervous and young. Yes. Who is this? My name is Rachel. I work at Morrison Enterprises in accounting. I heard you were fired, and I think it's wrong. I think you should know what's been happening since you left. I pulled over to the side of the road, my heart pounding. What's been happening? Natalie is basically running the company now, Rachel said in a rush. She makes all the decisions, signs off on everything, and Mr. Morrison just goes along with whatever she says. She fired 3 people last week for asking questions about the financial reports. Everyone is scared. We know something is wrong, but nobody wants to speak up because they're afraid of losing their jobs too. What kind of things are people questioning? I asked. Expense reports that don't make sense. Missing documentation for large purchases. Payments to vendors that nobody's heard of. It's a mess and it's getting worse. I thought you should know because, well, everyone knows you're innocent. We all know Natalie did it. If everyone knows, why hasn't anyone said anything? Rachel's voice dropped to almost a whisper. Because she threatened us. She said if anyone talks, she'll make sure we're blacklisted from every company in the city. And Mr. Morrison backs her up on everything. It's like he's under some kind of spell. Rachel, would you be willing to testify about what you've seen? In court on the record. There was a long silence. I could lose my job. You might lose your job anyway if the company goes under, I pointed out. And I promise, if you help me expose what Natalie's doing, I'll make sure you're protected. I need to think about it, Rachel said. Can I call you back? Of course. Take your time. But Rachel, thank you for reaching out. It means a lot. After we hung up, I immediately called Cameron and told him about the conversation. An insider witness would be huge, Cameron said. Especially if she can testify about Natalie threatening employees and Gregory enabling her behavior. Push her gently but don't pressure her. We need her testimony to be voluntary. Over the next week, more cracks appeared in Gregory's facade. Jonathan called to tell me that 2 board members had resigned, citing concerns about the company's financial management. A major client had pulled their contract, spooked by rumors of embezzlement. And Gregory had moved out of the penthouse and into a hotel, claiming he needed space to think. Space to think? I repeated to Brielle, laughing bitterly. More like space to be with Natalie without having to hide it. Their little house of cards is collapsing, Brielle said with satisfaction. And they deserve every bit of it. Derek finally located Marcus Vance in Florida, living in a condo that was definitely above his supposed means. Through careful surveillance, he discovered that Marcus and Natalie had been video chatting almost daily, and Marcus had made 3 trips to visit her in the past 2 months. I think we have enough to bring to the prosecutor, Cameron said during our weekly meeting. The forensic evidence, the witness statements, the connection between Natalie and Vance. We can file charges against both of them for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. Do it, I said without hesitation. Once we file, this becomes a criminal case, not just a civil matter, Cameron warned. Things could get complicated. Gregory might try to claim he was a victim too, manipulated by Natalie. It could affect your divorce settlement. I don't care about the settlement anymore, I said and realized I meant it. I care about justice. I care about making sure Natalie and Marcus face consequences for what they did. File the charges. Cameron filed the criminal complaint that afternoon. By evening, the news had spread through the business community like wildfire. Morrison Enterprises CFO accused of embezzlement in elaborate fraud scheme. Assistant and former employee conspire to steal millions. CEO's wife fights to clear her name. My phone exploded with calls and texts. Former colleagues reaching out to say they had never believed the accusations. Clients asking if I was available for consulting work. And Gregory calling over and over, his messages growing increasingly frantic. I didn't answer any of his calls. There was nothing he could say that I wanted to hear. Rachel called me back 3 days later. I'll testify, she said. I talked to my husband and he agrees. What Natalie's doing is wrong and somebody needs to stop her. I'm willing to take the risk. Thank you, I said, relief flooding through me. Cameron will be in touch to take your statement. Sienna, Rachel said hesitantly, there's something else you should know. Natalie's been telling people that Mr. Morrison is going to marry her once the divorce is final. She's planning some kind of big wedding, talking about it in the office like it's already decided. The words stung less than I expected. Maybe I was finally becoming numb to the betrayal. Or maybe I had simply accepted that the man I married was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. Let her plan, I said. She might be planning it from a jail cell. The criminal investigation moved faster than I expected. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Angela Torres, was furious when she saw the evidence of corporate fraud. She assigned 2 detectives to the case and issued warrants for Natalie's and Marcus's financial records. We're going to bury them, Angela told me during our first meeting. The evidence you and your team compiled is solid. Add that to the insider testimony and the forensic audit results, and we have an airtight case. What about Gregory? I asked. Will he be charged too? That depends on whether we can prove he knew about the fraud, Angela said. Right now, it looks like he was manipulated rather than complicit. But if evidence emerges that he was aware of Natalie's activities and chose to ignore them, that changes things. Part of me wanted Gregory to be charged too, to face consequences for his part in this mess. But a larger part of me just wanted it to be over. I wanted my name cleared and my freedom secured, and then I wanted to never think about any of them again. The divorce trial was scheduled for 2 weeks away. Cameron was confident we would win, especially now that criminal charges had been filed against Natalie. Gregory's lawyer knows they're in trouble, Cameron told me. They're trying to settle again. They've upped the offer to $8 million plus your full share of the company assets. And the non-disclosure agreement? I asked. They're willing to drop it. $8 million. My share of the company. And the freedom to tell my side of the story. It was everything I had asked for, everything I deserved. No, I said. Cameron blinked. No. I want the trial. I want Gregory on the stand, under oath, having to admit what he did. I want it on public record that he chose to believe a woman he barely knew over his wife of 8 years. I want everyone to know exactly how this happened. Sienna, taking this to trial is risky, Cameron warned. The settlement is good. You would walk away with financial security and your reputation intact. But Gregory would walk away too, I said. He would get to pretend he was just as much a victim as I was. And I'm not letting that happen. He destroyed our marriage and tried to destroy my career because he was thinking with something other than his brain. He needs to face that publicly. Cameron studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay, we go to trial. But Sienna, be prepared. This is going to get ugly. I know, I said. But I'm not the one who should be worried about things getting ugly. That's on Gregory and Natalie now. The turning point came on a Tuesday morning, delivered in an email so mundane I almost deleted it thinking it was spam. The sender was listed as anonymous friend, and the subject line read simply, "You need to see this." I opened it cautiously, half expecting a virus or some new way Natalie was trying to mess with my life. Instead, I found a link to a cloud storage folder and a brief message. I worked IT at Morrison Enterprises until last week. They fired me for asking questions. These are Natalie's personal emails from the company server. Thought you should have them. Good luck. My finger hovered over the link. This could be a trap, bait to get me to access something illegally so they could claim I was hacking. But something told me it was genuine, maybe the simple, straightforward tone of the message, or the fact that it came from someone who had been fired for doing the right thing. I forwarded the email to Cameron without clicking the link. He called me 5 minutes later. "Don't open this yourself," he said immediately. "I'm bringing in a cybersecurity expert to verify it's safe and legally obtained. If this is what it claims to be, it could be exactly what we need." 3 hours later, Cameron called back, his voice tight with barely controlled excitement. "Sienna, you need to get to my office right now. You need to see what's in these emails." I drove to his office in record time, my heart pounding. Cameron, Patricia, and Derek were huddled around a laptop when I arrived, all wearing expressions of grim satisfaction. "Sit down," Cameron said, pulling out a chair for me. "And prepare yourself. This is worse than we thought." He turned the laptop toward me and I started reading. The emails were between Natalie and Marcus Vance, spanning the entire 8 months Natalie had worked at Morrison Enterprises. The earliest ones were strategic and calculating. Phase 1 complete, Natalie had written 2 weeks after starting. "The billionaire fool trusts me completely. He works late every night, drinks too much, complains about his wife being distant. Easy target. Give me another month and I'll have him eating out of my hand." Marcus's response: "Good. Remember the plan. Make yourself indispensable first. Then start creating problems only you can solve. When you're ready, we'll set up the wife to take the fall." My hands shook as I scrolled through more emails. They detailed everything. How Natalie had deliberately made mistakes that I had to fix, then taken credit for catching the errors herself. How she had slowly isolated Gregory from other employees, making him dependent on her for information. How she had drugged his drinks during late-night work sessions to make him more pliable, easier to manipulate. She drugged him? I gasped, looking up at Cameron. "Keep reading," he said grimly. The emails got worse. Natalie describing how she had seduced Gregory after getting him drunk at a company dinner. How she had convinced him that I was having an affair, showing him fabricated texts and emails to make him jealous and suspicious. How she had gradually transferred money from the company accounts, always careful to leave a trail that pointed to me. "The wife is so trusting," Natalie had written in one email. "She doesn't even check her own login credentials. I've been using her access for weeks and she has no idea. When we're ready to strike, she won't see it coming." There were photos attached to some emails. Natalie wearing expensive jewelry, posing in high-end restaurants, lounging on beaches in the Cayman Islands. All funded by stolen money, all while I was working 16-hour days trying to keep the company running smoothly. But the email that made my blood run cold was dated 3 days before I was fired. "Tomorrow is the day," Natalie had written. "I'm presenting the evidence against the wife. Morrison will be devastated, angry. I'll be there to comfort him, to help him through it. By the end of the week, she'll be gone, and I'll be the only woman in his life. And once we're married, the company will be mine. Well, ours. 50-50 split like we agreed, after we slowly drain what's left and disappear." Marcus's response: "You're brilliant. My father would be proud. The Morrisons destroyed him and now we're destroying them. And getting rich in the process. Perfect revenge." I sat back from the laptop feeling sick. She never loved him. It was all a game. Revenge and money, that's all this ever was. Marcus Vance's father worked for Gregory's father, Derek explained. He was fired for embezzlement 20 years ago, died broke and bitter a few years later. Marcus has been planning revenge ever since. He found Natalie, trained her, and sent her in like a weapon. "Does Gregory know?" I asked. "Has anyone shown him these emails?" "Not yet," Cameron said. "We just got them this morning. Angela Torres is reviewing them now to determine if they can be used as evidence. If they can, we're filing additional charges against both Natalie and Marcus for conspiracy, fraud, identity theft, and about 6 other crimes. I want Gregory to see them," I said. "Before they go public, before the trial. I want him to know exactly how badly he was played." "Sienna," Cameron said carefully, "I understand the impulse, but confronting Gregory right now could complicate things." "I don't want to confront him," I said. "I just want him to know the truth. He destroyed our marriage over a lie. He owes me at least the acknowledgement that he was wrong." Patricia spoke up. "There's more. We traced the shell companies to Marcus Vance. He set them all up, provided the banking contacts, and helped Natalie move the money. We also found evidence that Natalie was planning to disappear once the company collapsed. She has a plane ticket to the Cayman Islands scheduled for 3 weeks from now, right after she expected the divorce to be finalized. She was going to leave Gregory too," I said, the realization hitting me. She was going to take the money, ruin the company, and vanish, leaving him with nothing. That appears to be the plan, Patricia confirmed. I thought about Gregory, the man I had loved for so long. Despite everything he had done to me, despite the pain and betrayal, I couldn't help feeling a flicker of pity. He had been as much a victim of Natalie's scheme as I had in some ways. She had deliberately targeted him, manipulated him, destroyed his ability to think clearly. She had drugged him, for crying out loud. But then I remembered the coldness in his eyes when he fired me. The way he had believed her lies without question. The fact that he had chosen her over me again and again, even when people like Jonathan tried to warn him that something was wrong. The pity evaporated. Gregory had made his choices. He would have to live with the consequences. Show him the emails, I said to Cameron. But I want to be there when you do. Cameron looked like he wanted to argue, but something in my expression must have convinced him. All right. I'll set up a meeting. 2 days later, I walked into a conference room in Cameron's office building to find Gregory already sitting at the table. He looked terrible. His usually immaculate suit was wrinkled, his face unshaven, his eyes bloodshot. When he saw me, he stood up quickly like he was going to come around the table. Don't, I said, holding up my hand. Sit down, Gregory. He sat, his hands clasped on the table in front of him. Sienna, please. I need to talk to you. I've been trying to reach you for weeks. I know. I've been ignoring your calls. I took a seat across from him, Cameron and Patricia flanking me. Gregory's lawyer, a sleek man named Richard something, sat beside him looking uncomfortable. I made a mistake, Gregory said, the words tumbling out. I should have believed you. I should have investigated more carefully before firing you. Jonathan finally made me see what was happening, and I've been trying to fix it. I fired Natalie, reported her to the police, tried to undo the damage. Please, Sienna. Tell me how I can make this right. I looked at him, really looked at him. The man I had married had been confident, strong, sure of himself. This man was broken, desperate. But was it genuine regret or just fear of losing everything? When did you fire Natalie? I asked. A week ago. After Jonathan showed me the discrepancies in the accounts and I finally really looked at the evidence myself. I realized I had been wrong about you. You realized you were wrong, I repeated, my voice flat. After how many weeks? After how much damage? After sleeping with her and planning a future with her while your wife was fighting to clear her name. Gregory flinched. I never slept with her. She kissed me a few times, but I never took it further. I was faithful to you, Sienna. You were faithful, I said and laughed without humor. Gregory, you fired me, accused me of being a criminal, blocked all my attempts to defend myself, and chose to believe a woman you barely knew over your wife of 8 years. Whether you physically slept with her or not doesn't change any of that. I know, Gregory said, his voice breaking. I know I messed up. I was stupid and arrogant and I let myself be manipulated. But Sienna, I still love you. We can fix this. We can go to counseling, rebuild trust, start over. I stared at him in disbelief. You think I want to start over with you? After everything that happened? We built something together, Gregory said desperately. 8 years of marriage, 10 years of friendship. That has to count for something. I made a mistake, but people make mistakes. Can't you forgive me? Cameron cleared his throat. Mr. Morrison, perhaps you should see what we came here to show you before you continue. He opened his laptop and turned it toward Gregory. These are emails between Natalie and Marcus Vance. I suggest you read them carefully. I watched Gregory's face as he scrolled through the emails. Confusion gave way to shock, then to horror, and finally to a pale, sickened realization. His hands trembled on the laptop. She drugged me, he whispered. She was using me the whole time? Yes, I said, keeping my voice steady. It was all a setup, Gregory. Revenge and profit. She never cared about you. She was planning to ruin you and disappear with the money. Gregory looked up at me, tears in his eyes. I'm so sorry. Sienna, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I thought she cared about me. I thought you were the one who betrayed me. And that, I said coldly, is why we're getting divorced. Because when it came down to it, you believed the worst of me. You didn't question, didn't investigate, didn't give me the benefit of the doubt. You just assumed I was guilty and threw me away. I was manipulated, Gregory protested. She was drugging me, lying to me, fabricating evidence. How was I supposed to know? You were supposed to know me, I said, standing up. That's how. After 10 years together, you should have known I would never steal from you or betray you. But you didn't. So now you get to live with the consequences of that choice. Sienna, please? Gregory reached for my hand, but I pulled it away. Don't do this. Don't throw away our marriage because I made one mistake. One mistake. I laughed bitterly. Gregory, you made 1,000 mistakes. Every time you listened to Natalie over me. Every time you defended her instead of questioning her. Every time you looked at me with suspicion instead of love. Those weren't accidents. Those were choices. I'll do anything, Gregory said desperately. Anything you want. I'll sell the company, give you everything, spend the rest of my life making it up to you. Just don't leave me. I already left, I said quietly. The moment you fired me and chose to believe I was a criminal. I left then even if I didn't know it yet. What we had, what we built together, it's gone. And it's not coming back. I walked out of the conference room without looking back. Behind me, I heard Gregory calling my name, heard his lawyer trying to calm him down. But I didn't stop, didn't turn around. Cameron caught up with me in the elevator. That was brave, he said. That was necessary, I corrected. He needed to understand that this isn't fixable. That some betrayals are permanent. He looked devastated, Cameron observed. Good, I said and meant it. Maybe now he'll understand a fraction of how I felt. My phone rang as Cameron and I walked to the parking garage. An unknown number, but I answered anyway. Ms. Brooks? This is Angela Torres. We need to meet immediately. Marcus Vance was arrested an hour ago in Florida, and he's willing to make a deal. My heart jumped. What kind of deal? He'll testify against Natalie in exchange for a reduced sentence. He's given us everything. Bank records, communications, the entire scheme from start to finish. Ms. Brooks, we have her. It's over. I leaned against Cameron's car, my knees suddenly weak. What about the charges against me? Officially dropped as of 20 minutes ago. The prosecutor in the original case reviewed the evidence and admitted the charges should never have been filed. Your record will be cleared completely. And Natalie? We're arresting her this afternoon. With Marcus's testimony and the evidence you provided, she's looking at 15 to 20 years in prison. I closed my eyes, letting the words sink in. It was really over. Natalie would face justice. My name would be cleared. And I was free. Thank you, I said to Angela. Thank you for believing me. Thank you for fighting back, Angela replied. Most people would have just taken a settlement and moved on. You made sure the truth came out. That matters. After we hung up, I stood in the parking garage for a long moment, letting myself feel the weight lift. Cameron waited patiently beside me, not speaking, just being present. I need to call Brielle, I finally said. You need to celebrate, Cameron corrected with a smile. But yes, call Brielle first. Brielle answered on the first ring. How did it go? Did Gregory see the emails? He saw them. And Brielle, Marcus Vance was arrested. He's testifying against Natalie. The charges against me are officially dropped. Brielle screamed so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. You won. Sienna, you actually won. We won, I corrected. I couldn't have done this without you and Cameron. I'm coming home early, Brielle declared. We're ordering the most expensive food we can find and celebrating properly. That evening, surrounded by Brielle, Cameron, and a few close friends who had stood by me through everything, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. The storm had passed. The battle was over. And I had survived. My phone buzzed with a text from Jonathan. Heard about Marcus's arrest. I'm glad justice is being served. For what it's worth, the board voted to formally apologize to you and offer your position back. I know you won't take it, but you deserve to know we recognize how wrong we were. I showed the text to Brielle. The board wants me back. Are you going to do it? She asked. No, I said without hesitation. That chapter of my life is closed. I'm building something new now, something that's entirely mine. I don't need Morrison Enterprises anymore. Good answer, Brielle said, raising her glass. To new beginnings. To new beginnings, I echoed, clinking my glass against hers. But even as I celebrated, a part of me was already thinking ahead. The divorce trial was still coming. Natalie's arrest didn't change that. Gregory still had to face the consequences of his choices, and I still had to close this chapter of my life permanently. The hardest part wasn't over yet, but I was ready for it. The news of Natalie's arrest spread through the business community like wildfire. By the next morning, my phone was exploding with calls from former colleagues, clients, business contacts, and even reporters wanting my side of the story. Cameron fielded most of them, giving a carefully crafted statement that cleared my name while protecting the ongoing criminal case. Sienna Brooks has been fully exonerated of all accusations, Cameron's statement read. The evidence clearly shows she was the victim of an elaborate fraud scheme orchestrated by Natalie Chen and Marcus Vance. Ms. Brooks looks forward to rebuilding her career and reputation, and appreciates the support of those who believed in her integrity from the beginning. I woke up that morning to find my consulting business email flooded with inquiries. Companies that had ghosted me weeks ago were suddenly eager to work with the CFO who uncovered $1 million fraud. The irony wasn't lost on me, being celebrated now for the same situation that had destroyed my reputation before. "You're going to need to hire help," Brielle said over breakfast, scrolling through my emails on her phone. "There's no way you can handle all these clients alone." She was right. In the span of 24 hours, my small consulting business had gone from struggling to secure work to being overwhelmed with opportunities. I spent the morning responding to emails, scheduling consultations, and trying to figure out how to scale up fast enough to meet the demand. The divorce papers were scheduled to be served to Gregory that afternoon at his office, during a board meeting. Cameron had arranged it deliberately, wanting to make a statement. Gregory had humiliated me publicly by firing me in front of Natalie. Now he would face the consequences of his actions just as publicly. At 3 o'clock, Cameron called me. "It's done. The papers were just served." How did he react? I asked, not sure why I cared but unable to stop myself from asking. According to the process server, he went pale, excused himself from the meeting, and locked himself in his office. The board members looked pretty uncomfortable. Word is spreading fast that the divorce papers include detailed allegations of his failure to investigate the embezzlement claims properly and his relationship with Natalie. "Good," I said firmly. "He should be uncomfortable. He should feel exactly how I felt when he fired me." "Sienna," Cameron said carefully, "I know you're angry and you have every right to be. But be prepared for Gregory to fight back. He's going to try to minimize his role in all of this, paint himself as a victim too. His lawyer is already calling me, trying to negotiate." "There's nothing to negotiate," I said. "I want the divorce finalized, I want my fair share of the marital assets, and I want it on record that he wrongfully terminated me based on fabricated evidence. Those are my terms. He can accept them or we can fight it out in court." "He's not going to accept them without a fight," Cameron warned. "Admitting wrongful termination opens him up to lawsuits, not just from you but from any other employee who thinks they were treated unfairly. His lawyer is going to argue that he acted on information he believed to be true, that he was manipulated just like you were. Then we go to trial," I said. "I'm done making this easy for him." That evening, Gregory showed up at Brielle's house. I watched through the front window as he got out of his car, looking around like he wasn't sure he should be there. He was still in his suit from work, but his tie was gone and his jacket was rumpled. "Should I call the police?" Brielle asked, appearing beside me with her phone ready. "No," I said. "Let me talk to him. But stay close just in case." I opened the door before Gregory could knock. He looked up at me, his eyes red-rimmed and desperate. "Sienna, please. Just give me 5 minutes." "You have 3, I said, crossing my arms and staying in the doorway. "I know you're angry. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But please don't do this. Don't divorce me. We can work through this. I'll do whatever it takes." "You had your chance to fight for this marriage," I said coldly. "You chose not to. You chose to believe Natalie over me. You chose to fire me and destroy my reputation. Those were your choices, Gregory. Now I'm making mine." "I was manipulated," Gregory insisted. "The emails prove that. She drugged me, lied to me, fabricated evidence. How can you hold me responsible for being a victim?" "Because you weren't just a victim," I said. "You were a willing participant. She couldn't have manipulated you if you hadn't already decided I was the enemy. She couldn't have convinced you I was stealing if you had trusted me even a little bit. The drugs, the lies, the manipulation, they all worked because you wanted to believe the worst of me." "That's not fair," Gregory protested. "Fair?" I laughed harshly. "You want to talk about fair? Was it fair when you fired me without investigation? Was it fair when you blocked all my attempts to defend myself? Was it fair when you moved your mistress into my office before I had even cleared out my desk?" "I didn't move her into your office," Gregory said weakly. "Didn't you? Who's been doing my job for the past few months, Gregory? Who's been handling the finances, signing off on transactions, making decisions about the company I helped build?" He had no answer for that, just stared at his shoes like they held all the secrets of the universe. "Your 3 minutes are up," I said. "Don't come here again, Gregory. If you have something to say, you can say it through your lawyer." "I love you," he said quietly. "I know you don't believe me, but I do. I love you, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life regretting what I did. Good, I said and closed the door in his face. I leaned against the door, listening to his footsteps retreat, his car door close, his engine start. Only when I heard him drive away did I let myself slide down to the floor, my hands shaking. Brielle sat down beside me, pulling me into a hug. You did good, she said. I'm proud of you. I feel awful, I admitted. He looked so broken. He should feel broken, Brielle said firmly. He broke you first. Don't you dare feel guilty for refusing to accept his apologies and fix everything for him. He made his choices. Now he gets to live with them. She was right. I knew she was right. But knowing something intellectually and feeling it emotionally were two different things. Despite everything Gregory had done, despite all the pain and betrayal, a part of me still remembered loving him. Still remembered the man he used to be before Natalie entered our lives. But that man was gone, if he had ever really existed. And I couldn't spend the rest of my life mourning what might have been. The next few days brought a flurry of legal activity. Gregory's lawyer filed a response to the divorce papers, arguing that the marriage breakdown was mutual and that both parties bore responsibility. They offered a settlement of $10 million and split of company assets, but included provisions that would require me to never discuss the circumstances of my termination publicly. They're still trying to protect his reputation, Cameron said, disgusted. They want to buy your silence. Tell them no, I said. I'm not signing anything that prevents me from telling the truth. They're not going to like that, Cameron warned. I don't care what they like, I shot back. I'm done caring about what Gregory wants or needs or likes. This is about what I deserve. Natalie's criminal trial was scheduled for 3 months away, giving the prosecution time to build their case with Marcus's testimony and the mountain of evidence we had compiled. Angela Torres was confident of a conviction, especially since Natalie's lawyer was already trying to negotiate a plea deal. She knows she's going down, Angela told me during one of our meetings. She's just trying to minimize the damage now. But I'm not offering anything less than 10 years. What she did was calculated, malicious, and destroyed multiple lives. Will I have to testify? I asked. Probably yes. Both in her criminal trial and in your divorce proceedings. Are you ready for that? I'm ready, I said and meant it. I want to look her in the eye and tell her exactly how much damage she caused. My consulting business was taking off faster than I could handle. Within 2 weeks of the charges being dropped, I had signed contracts with 5 companies, hired 2 junior consultants to help with the workload, and rented a small office space in a building downtown. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. Every desk, every computer, every decision was something I controlled. Brielle helped me move into the office, carrying boxes of supplies and hanging up the frame certifications I had earned over my career. As we stood back to admire our work, she put her arm around my shoulders. Look at you, she said. Business owner, boss lady, survivor. I'm so proud of you. I couldn't have done it without you, I said honestly. You gave me a place to stay, helped me through the worst of it, never once doubted me. Thank you doesn't feel like enough. You're my best friend, Brielle said simply. That's what we do. We show up for each other. That evening, I was working late at my new office when someone knocked on the door. I looked up to see Jonathan standing there, holding a bottle of wine and looking nervous. I hope it's okay that I stopped by, he said. I saw on LinkedIn that you opened your own firm. I wanted to congratulate you in person. Jonathan, I said, surprised but pleased. Come in. Though I should warn you, I don't have wine glasses yet. We'll have to drink from coffee mugs. He laughed and followed me inside, looking around at my modest office with apparent approval. This is great, Sienna. Really great. Much better than that stuffy corner office at Morrison Enterprises. It's smaller, I admitted, but it's mine. Nobody can fire me from my own company. We sat in my little meeting area, pouring wine into mismatched mugs I had picked up at a thrift store. Jonathan raised his mug in a toast. To new beginnings and better choices, he said. I'll drink to that, I agreed. We talked for an hour, carefully avoiding the topic of Gregory at first, discussing my new business and Jonathan's plans for his future. He was considering leaving Morrison Enterprises, he told me, possibly starting his own venture. I can't work with Gregory anymore, Jonathan admitted. Not after what happened. Every time I look at him, I remember how he treated you, how he wouldn't listen when I tried to warn him about Natalie. Our partnership is damaged beyond repair. I'm sorry, I said. I know you two were close. We were, Jonathan agreed. But friendship has limits. When someone shows you who they really are, you have to believe them. Gregory showed me that he's willing to sacrifice people he claims to love for the sake of his ego and his comfort. That's not someone I want to be in business with. What will you do? I have some ideas, Jonathan said with a slight smile. Actually, I was hoping we could talk about one of them. I know you're just getting started with your consulting firm, but have you thought about expanding? Taking on a partner, maybe? I looked at him carefully. You want to go into business with me? I think we could build something great together, Jonathan said. You have the financial expertise, I have the contract management and client relations experience. We both know how to run a company ethically, which seems to be rarer than it should be these days. The offer was tempting. Jonathan was talented, trustworthy, and shared my values. Having a partner would allow the business to grow faster, take on bigger clients, make a larger impact. But it was also scary. I had just escaped one partnership that had ended in disaster. The idea of tying myself to another person's decisions, even someone I trusted like Jonathan, made me nervous. Let me think about it, I said. It's a good idea, but I need to make sure I'm ready for a partnership again. The last one didn't end well. I understand, Jonathan said. Take your time. The offer stands whenever you're ready. Or if you're never ready, that's okay too. I just wanted you to know it's an option. After Jonathan left, I sat in my office alone, looking out at the city lights. A month ago, I had been fired, accused of embezzlement, and fighting to save my reputation. Now I had my own company, my name was cleared, and I had opportunities one never expected. Life had a strange way of working out sometimes. The divorce trial was scheduled for 2 weeks away. Cameron had prepared me for what to expect. Hostile questions from Gregory's lawyer, attempts to paint me as equally responsible for the marriage breakdown, suggestions that I was only pursuing the divorce out of spite rather than genuine desire to end the relationship. Remember, Cameron coached me during our prep sessions. Stay calm, stick to the facts, don't let them provoke you into emotional responses. Your story is strong. You just have to tell it clearly. I practiced my testimony until I could recite it in my sleep. The timeline of events, the evidence of Natalie's manipulation, the details of my wrongful termination. I rehearsed answers to every question Cameron thought they might ask, prepared for every attempt to trip me up or make me look bad. The night before the trial, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed at Brielle's guest house, staring at the ceiling, running through everything that might happen tomorrow. What if the judge didn't believe me? What if Gregory's lawyers were better than I expected? What if I froze up on the stand and couldn't defend myself properly? At 2 a.m, I gave up on sleep and went to the kitchen to make tea. Brielle found me there, sitting at the table with my hands wrapped around a steaming mug. Can't sleep? She asked, sitting down across from me. Too many thoughts, I admitted. Tomorrow is going to determine everything. The settlement, my reputation, whether the world believes I was wrongfully accused or thinks I'm just trying to save face. Sienna, Brielle said firmly, you've already won. You know that, right? The criminal charges are dropped. Natalie is going to prison. Your business is succeeding. The only thing left is making it official that your marriage is over, and honestly, that's a blessing, not a loss. I know, I said. Intellectually, I know all of that. But emotionally, I'm terrified. Of what? Of seeing him again. Of having to sit in that courtroom and recount every painful detail of how my marriage fell apart. Of facing the fact that the man I loved either never really existed or died somewhere along the way, replaced by someone I don't recognize. Brielle reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You're the strongest person I know. You've faced everything they've thrown at you and come out fighting. Tomorrow is just one more battle and you're going to win it. How do you know? Because you've already decided to, Brielle said simply. The Sienna who got fired 2 months ago might have backed down, might have accepted whatever settlement Gregory offered just to make it stop. But you're not that person anymore. You're someone who fights for what's right, even when it's hard. Even when it hurts. Her words settled something in my chest. She was right. I had changed. The experience had broken something in me, yes, but it had also forged something stronger in its place. I wasn't the naive woman who had trusted too easily and believed the best of people. I was someone harder, more cautious, but also more resilient. Tomorrow I would walk into that courtroom with my head high. I would tell my story, face Gregory one last time, and close this chapter of my life permanently. And then I would move forward into whatever came next, knowing I had survived the worst and come through it intact. Thank you, I said to Brielle. For everything. That's what best friends are for, she replied with a smile. Now finish your tea and try to get some sleep. You've got a big day tomorrow? I did as she suggested, returning to bed with a clearer head and calmer heart. When sleep finally came, I didn't dream of the past or worry about the future. I just rested, gathering strength for what was to come. Tomorrow would be hard. But I was ready for it. The courthouse was exactly what I expected. Imposing marble columns, echoing hallways, and an atmosphere of solemn justice. I arrived early with Cameron, both of us dressed in conservative business attire. I had chosen a navy blue suit with a simple white blouse, wanting to look professional and composed, not emotional or vengeful. Gregory was already there when we arrived, sitting on a bench outside the courtroom with his lawyer Richard. He looked up when I walked past, his expression hopeful for just a second before I looked away without acknowledging him. I saw his shoulders slump from the corner of my eye, but I didn't let myself feel guilty about it. "All rise," the bailiff called out as the judge entered. Judge Martha Reynolds was a woman in her 60s with gray hair pulled back in a severe bun and sharp eyes that seemed to see right through everyone in her courtroom. I had read about her before the trial. She had a reputation for being fair but uncompromising, with little patience for games or manipulation. "This is a dissolution of marriage proceeding," Judge Reynolds began, looking over her glasses at both parties. "Brooks versus Morrison. I've reviewed the initial filings from both sides. This seems like it should be straightforward, but I'm told there are complicating factors related to employment termination and fraud allegations. Is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor," Cameron stood. "My client was wrongfully terminated from her position as CFO of Morrison Enterprises based on fabricated evidence of embezzlement. The person who created that evidence, Natalie Chin, has since been arrested and charged with fraud, conspiracy, and theft. My client seeks not only dissolution of the marriage but acknowledgement of the wrongful termination and appropriate compensation." "Mr. Morrison's position?" Judge Reynolds asked, looking at Richard. "Your Honor," Richard stood smoothly, "while my client acknowledges the marriage has broken down irretrievably, he contests the characterization that he wrongfully terminated Mrs. Morrison. He acted on evidence he believed to be genuine at the time, provided by a trusted employee. He was as much a victim of Ms. Chen's deception as anyone else. Furthermore, my client has already fired Ms. Chen and reported her to authorities. He's taken appropriate corrective action." "Corrective action that came months too late," Cameron interjected. "Only after substantial damage had been done to my client's reputation and career." "Counselors," Judge Reynolds said sharply, "you'll have plenty of time to make your arguments. Let's proceed in an orderly fashion. Mrs. Brooks, you'll testify first." I took the stand, swore to tell the truth, and looked out at the courtroom. Besides the lawyers, Gregory, and court staff, there were a few reporters in the back rows and Jonathan, who had come to support me. Brielle couldn't be there because she was working, but she had sent me a text that morning: "Kick ass and take names. I believe in you." Cameron started with basic questions, establishing the timeline of my relationship with Gregory, our marriage, my role at Morrison Enterprises. Then he moved to the day I was fired. "Walk us through what happened that morning," Cameron said. I took a breath and began. "I arrived at work around 8 in the morning, expecting to present the quarterly financial report in a board meeting that afternoon. Instead, security escorted me directly to Gregory's office. He was there with Natalie Chen, his assistant. There was a termination letter on his desk. "What did Mr. Morrison tell you?" "He accused me of embezzling $200,000 from the company. He said there was evidence, bank statements, transfer records, documents with my digital signature. He gave me a choice: sign the termination letter and leave quietly, or he would call the police and have me arrested." "How did you respond?" "I denied it completely. I told him I would never steal from the company, that the evidence must be fake. I asked to see proof to have time to investigate. He refused. He said the evidence was irrefutable and that I had betrayed his trust." My voice remained steady, factual, but I saw several people in the courtroom lean forward, engaged. "Did Mr. Morrison conduct any independent investigation before firing you?" "No. He accepted Natalie's word and the documents she provided without question. He didn't check with our accounting department, didn't verify the transfers with the bank, didn't give me any opportunity to defend myself." "What happened after you signed the termination letter?" "Security escorted me to my office. I was given 15 minutes to gather my personal belongings while guards watched me. Then I was walked out of the building in front of my colleagues. It was humiliating and devastating." Cameron walked me through the next few weeks. My discovery of the fake evidence, hiring him as my lawyer, gathering proof of my innocence, the revelation of Natalie's scheme with Marcus Vance. "Mrs. Brooks," Cameron said, "in your professional opinion as someone with 10 years of financial management experience, Could these alleged embezzlement transfers have occurred without Mr. Morrison's knowledge? No, I said firmly. Company policy required dual authorization for any transaction over $10,000. Gregory had to personally approve every large transfer. Either he approved these transfers himself, or someone used his credentials without his knowledge. And you believe someone used his credentials? I believe Natalie used his credentials to authorize the transfers, then fabricated documents to make it look like I was responsible. It was Gregory's lawyer's turn to cross-examine me. Richard stood up with a sympathetic smile that didn't reach his eyes. Mrs. Brooks, I'm sorry for what you've been through, he began, his tone gentle. Nobody should have to face false accusations. But isn't it true that you and Mr. Morrison were having marital problems even before this incident? No, I said clearly. We had a normal marriage with normal disagreements but nothing serious. Nothing that would suggest our relationship was in trouble. Didn't Mr. Morrison mention feeling like you were distant? That you worked long hours and weren't as present in the marriage? I worked the same hours I always had, I replied. The same hours Gregory worked. We built the company together, both putting in long days. That was something we shared, not something that caused problems. But you never had children despite being married for 8 years. Was that a source of tension? Cameron stood up. Objection, Your Honor. Relevance. Mr. Morrison's lawyer, Judge Reynolds said, looking over her glasses at Richard, I hope you're going somewhere with this line of questioning. Your Honor, I'm establishing that the marriage had existing problems independent of the termination incident, Richard said smoothly. Overruled, but make your point quickly, Judge Reynolds said. Mrs. Brooks? Richard prompted. We had discussed having children, I said, keeping my voice level. We decided to wait until the company was more stable. It was a mutual decision, not a source of conflict. And yet, Mr. Morrison has testified that he felt lonely in the marriage, that he was vulnerable when Miss Chin began showing him attention. Doesn't that suggest the marriage was already troubled? It suggests that Gregory was looking for an excuse to justify his behavior with Natalie, I said, unable to keep the edge out of my voice. Every marriage has moments of disconnect. That doesn't give either party permission to believe the worst of their spouse or to seek comfort with someone else. Richard tried several more angles, attempting to paint me as a difficult wife, an absentee partner, someone who contributed to the marriage breakdown. But I didn't take the bait. I kept my answers calm and factual, refusing to let him twist my words into something they weren't. When I finally stepped down from the witness stand, I felt drained but steady. I had told my story. Now it was Gregory's turn. He took the stand looking nervous, his hands clasped tightly in front of him. Richard started with softball questions, establishing Gregory's version of events. How hard he worked to build the company, how much he had trusted me, how devastating it was to discover what he thought was my betrayal. Mr. Morrison, Richard said, when Miss Chin presented you with evidence of embezzlement, what did you think? I was shocked, Gregory said, his voice barely above a whisper. I couldn't believe Sienna would do that to me, to us. But the evidence looked so real. Bank statements, transfer records, her digital signature on everything. Natalie was so confident, so detailed in her presentation. I trusted her professional judgment. Why didn't you investigate further before terminating Mrs. Brooks? I should have, Gregory admitted, looking down. That's the biggest regret of my life. But I was angry and hurt. I felt betrayed by someone I loved. I let my emotions override my judgment. Were you aware that Miss Chen was manipulating you? Not at the time. Looking back now, I can see all the signs I missed. How she isolated me from other employees, made herself indispensable, constantly reinforced negative ideas about Sienna. But in the moment, I thought she was just being a good assistant, protecting the company's interests. Mr. Morrison, Richard said carefully, did you have a romantic relationship with Miss Chen? No, Gregory said firmly. She kissed me a few times, made advances, but I never reciprocated. I was faithful to my wife, even when I thought she had betrayed me. Cameron stood for cross-examination, and I saw the shift in his posture. This was what he had been waiting for. Mr. Morrison, Cameron began, you say you trusted Miss Chen's professional judgment. How long had she worked for you when she presented this evidence? About 8 months. And how long had you known your wife? 10 years. We were married for 8. So you trusted the professional judgment of someone you'd known for 8 months over the word of someone you'd known for 10 years and married? Cameron let that sink in for a moment. Did you even give Mrs. Brooks a chance to defend herself? She denied it, Gregory said. But the evidence was right there. Did you investigate that evidence? Check with your bank? Consult with other members of the finance team? Bring in an independent auditor? No, Gregory admitted quietly. Why not? Because I believed Natalie. She had been so reliable, so trustworthy. I didn't think she would lie about something that serious. But you thought your wife of 8 years would embezzle $200,000 from a company she helped build? Cameron's voice was sharp. You thought the woman who had worked beside you for years, who had sacrificed her own career advancement to support yours, would suddenly become a criminal? And you believed that based on 8 months of knowing a virtual stranger? I made a mistake, Gregory said, his voice cracking. I know that now. You made several mistakes, Mr. Morrison. You trusted the wrong person. You fired your wife without investigation. You allowed Miss Chen to take over your wife's position and responsibilities. And even when your business partner Jonathan Pierce came to you with concerns about financial irregularities, you ignored him. Isn't that correct? Jonathan mentioned some concerns, yes, Gregory admitted. And what did you do about those concerns? I told him I would look into it. But you didn't, did you? Because that would mean admitting you might have been wrong about Mrs. Brooks. And you couldn't do that, could you? Objection, Richard stood. Argumentative. Sustained, Judge Reynolds said. Mr. Brooks, stick to questions. Mr. Morrison, Cameron continued, when did you finally realize that Mrs. Brooks was innocent? When Jonathan showed me the email exchanges between Natalie and Marcus Vance. That was about 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, Cameron repeated. More than 2 months after you fired Mrs. Brooks. 2 months in which her reputation was destroyed, her career derailed, her life turned upside down. And in those 2 months, did you ever once consider that you might have been wrong? Gregory was silent for a long moment. I should have, he finally said. I should have investigated more thoroughly from the beginning. I should have trusted Sienna. I failed her in every way that mattered, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life. Yet you're here today contesting her claim of wrongful termination, Cameron said. You admit you made mistakes, but you don't want to face the legal consequences of those mistakes. Is that correct? I'm trying to do the right thing now, Gregory protested. I fired Natalie, reported her to the police, tried to clear Sienna's name. After the damage was already done. After Mrs. Brooks had already hired lawyers, gathered evidence, and fought to prove her innocence on her own. You didn't help her, Mr. Morrison. You made everything harder for her at every turn. And now you want credit for eventually doing what you should have done from the beginning? Gregory had no answer for that. He looked at me across the courtroom, his eyes pleading for something I couldn't give him. Forgiveness, maybe. Understanding. A sign that I didn't hate him completely. I looked away. Cameron called Jonathan as a witness next. Jonathan testified about the financial irregularities he had noticed, about trying to warn Gregory multiple times, about how Natalie had threatened him when he pushed too hard for answers. I've known Gregory for 15 years, Jonathan said. We built that company together from nothing. But what he did to Sienna was unforgivable. He let himself be manipulated, yes, but he also made active choices to believe the worst of his wife and to ignore evidence that didn't fit the narrative he wanted to believe. Why do you think he did that? Cameron asked. Jonathan looked directly at Gregory. Because Natalie made him feel important, needed, desired. She flattered his ego in ways that maybe Sienna, being his partner and equal, didn't. And when she presented him with a choice between believing he was foolish enough to be manipulated or believing his wife was a criminal, he chose the option that protected his pride. Gregory flinched at Jonathan's words, but he didn't dispute them. Patricia, my forensic accountant, testified next, walking the judge through the trail of money from Morrison Enterprises through shell companies to accounts controlled by Natalie and Marcus Vance. She presented charts and documents showing the pattern of theft, the careful way Natalie had covered her tracks, and the sophisticated financial knowledge required to pull off such a scheme. In your professional opinion, Cameron asked Patricia, could Mrs. Brooks have committed this fraud? Not without Mr. Morrison's knowledge, Patricia said firmly. The dual authorization protocols meant that every large transfer had to be approved by both the CFO and the CEO. If Mrs. Brooks had tried to embezzle money, Mr. Morrison would have seen every transaction. The only way this scheme worked was because someone had access to Mr. Morrison's credentials and could authorize transfers in his name. The trial lasted 3 days. Witness after witness testified about my character, my work ethic, my integrity. Former colleagues spoke about how I had always insisted on proper procedures, how I had caught other people's mistakes, how I had been the moral compass of the finance department. Rachel, the accountant from Morrison Enterprises, testified about Natalie's threats and Gregory's enabling behavior. "We all knew something was wrong," Rachel said. "But we were too scared to speak up." Natalie made it clear that anyone who questioned her would be fired, and Mr. Morrison backed her up on everything. It was like he was under a spell. Gregory's witnesses were less compelling. His lawyer called character witnesses who spoke about what a good businessman Gregory was, how hard he worked, how much pressure he was under. But none of them could explain why that pressure justified firing his wife without investigation. On the final day, both lawyers gave their closing arguments. "Your Honor," Richard began, "this case is about a marriage that broke down under extraordinary circumstances. My client made mistakes, he admits that freely. But those mistakes came from a place of being manipulated and deceived by a criminal mastermind. Gregory Morrison is a victim here too, just as much as Mrs. Brooks is. He lost his wife, damaged his business reputation, and was used as a tool in someone else's revenge scheme. The appropriate response is compassion and understanding, not punishment." Cameron stood for his closing. "Your Honor, this case is indeed about a marriage that broke down. But it broke down because Mr. Morrison chose to believe a stranger over his wife. He chose convenience over investigation. He chose protecting his ego over protecting his partner. And even after the truth came out, even after he knew he was wrong, he continued to fight Mrs. Brooks in this divorce rather than simply accepting responsibility and making things right. This is not a man who deserves compassion. This is a man who needs to face the consequences of his choices." Judge Reynolds took a day to deliberate. When we returned to court for the verdict, the tension in the room was suffocating. I sat beside Cameron, my hands folded in my lap, trying to appear calm even though my heart was racing. "I've reviewed all the evidence and testimony in this case," Judge Reynolds began, looking out at the courtroom over her glasses. "This is one of the most troubling cases I've encountered in my 20 years on the bench. Not because the facts are particularly complex, but because they reveal a profound failure of judgment, character, and basic human decency." Gregory shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Mr. Morrison," Judge Reynolds continued, looking directly at him, "you stood in this courtroom and admitted that you fired your wife of 8 years based on evidence you never properly investigated. You admitted that you trusted an employee you barely knew over the woman you claimed to love. You admitted that you ignored warnings from your business partner and other employees about financial irregularities. And yet, you asked this court to absolve you of responsibility because you were manipulated." She paused, letting her words hang in the air. "Every person in this room has been lied to at some point. Every person has been manipulated, deceived, led astray. That is not an excuse for abandoning basic principles of fairness and investigation, especially when the person you're accusing is someone you've known and loved for a decade. Your failure here was not simply being deceived. Your failure was choosing to be deceived because it was easier than confronting uncomfortable truths about yourself and your judgment." Gregory's face had gone pale. "Mrs. Brooks," Judge Reynolds turned to me, "has demonstrated remarkable strength and integrity throughout this ordeal. She fought to clear her name when it would have been easier to take a settlement and disappear. She gathered evidence, built a case, and ensured that the person who actually committed these crimes would face justice. She did the work that Mr. Morrison should have done from the beginning." I felt tears prick my eyes but blinked them back. "Therefore," Judge Reynolds said, "I am granting the divorce as requested. The marriage between Sienna Brooks and Gregory Morrison is hereby dissolved. Furthermore, I find that Mr. Morrison's termination of Mrs. Brooks was wrongful and without proper cause. Mrs. Brooks is entitled to compensation for lost wages, damage to her professional reputation, and emotional distress." Cameron squeezed my hand under the table. "As for the division of assets," Judge Reynolds continued, "Mrs. Brooks is entitled to 50% of all marital assets, including Mr. Morrison's shares in Morrison Enterprises. Additionally, Mr. Morrison will pay Mrs. Brooks $12 million in compensatory damages for the wrongful termination and reputational harm. This is not a negotiation. This is my ruling." Gregory made a choking sound. Richard put a hand on his arm, whispering something I couldn't hear. "Mr. Morrison," Judge Reynolds said, "I strongly suggest you take this as a learning experience. You built a successful company through hard work and intelligence. But success in business means nothing if you lack basic character and integrity in your personal relationships. I hope you spend some time reflecting on the choices that brought you to this courtroom today. Court is adjourned." The gavel came down with a sharp crack that seemed to echo through the room. It was over. Cameron pulled me into a hug and I finally let the tears fall. Not tears of sadness but of relief. Of vindication. Of finally being believed after months of fighting. "You won," Cameron said, his voice full of pride. Sienna, you won everything. Gregory tried to approach me as we were leaving the courtroom, but Jonathan intercepted him, shaking his head. I heard Gregory say my name, but I didn't turn around. There was nothing left to say to him. Outside the courthouse, reporters crowded around, shouting questions. Cameron had prepared me for this. Mrs. Brooks, how do you feel about the judge's ruling? I'm grateful that the truth has been acknowledged, I said clearly. I never wanted this to go to trial. I just wanted justice, and today I received it. What are your plans now? I'm focusing on my consulting business and rebuilding my career. I'm looking forward to moving past this chapter of my life. Do you have any message for Mr. Morrison? I paused, considering. I hope he learns from this experience. I hope he becomes a better person and a better businessman. But that's his journey now, not mine. Brielle was waiting at the bottom of the courthouse steps, having rushed over as soon as her shift ended. She pulled me into a fierce hug, not caring about the reporters or cameras. I'm so proud of you, she said. You did it. You actually did it. We did it, I corrected. I couldn't have survived this without you. That evening, Brielle, Cameron, Jonathan, and a few other close friends gathered at Brielle's house for a small celebration. Nothing fancy, just pizza and wine in the company of people who had stood by me when everything fell apart. To Sienna, Jonathan raised his glass. The toughest, smartest, most determined person I know. May your future be as bright as your character. To Sienna, everyone echoed. I looked around at these people who had believed in me, fought for me, refused to abandon me even when things looked hopeless. This was family. Not the family I had been born into or the family I had married into, but the family I had chosen and who had chosen me back. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me look. Sienna, this is Gregory. I know you probably won't read this, but I needed to say it anyway. You were right about everything. I was a coward and a fool. I let myself be manipulated because it was easier than facing my own insecurities. I destroyed the best thing in my life because I was too proud to admit I might be wrong. I don't expect your forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I see now what I lost, and I'll regret it every day for the rest of my life. I hope you find happiness. You deserve it more than anyone I know. I read the message twice, then deleted it without responding. Gregory's regrets were his to carry now, not mine to ease. He had made his choices. He would live with the consequences. I put my phone away and rejoined the celebration, surrounded by people who had proven their loyalty when it mattered most. The past was behind me. The future was ahead. And for the first time in months, I felt genuinely excited about what came next. 6 weeks after the divorce was finalized, I sat in my office reviewing contracts for 3 new clients when my assistant, Kelly, knocked on the door. There's someone here to see you, Kelly said. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's important. Trevor Hamilton? The name rang a bell. Trevor Hamilton was the founder and CEO of Hamilton Architecture, one of the most innovative firms in the city. I had read about him in business journals but never met him personally. Send him in, I said, curious. Trevor Hamilton was not what I expected. Based on his reputation, I had pictured someone older, more corporate. Instead, a man who looked to be in his mid-30s walked in, wearing jeans and a green button-down shirt, his dark hair slightly messy like he'd been running his hands through it. He had an easy smile and warm brown eyes. Ms. Brooks, he said, extending his hand. Thank you for seeing me without an appointment. I'm Trevor Hamilton. Please call me Sienna, I said, shaking his hand. His grip was firm and confident. What can I do for you? I need a financial consultant, Trevor said, sitting down across from my desk. My company is growing faster than I anticipated, and I need someone who can help me organize the finances, prepare for potential investors, and make sure I'm not making any major mistakes. Your name keeps coming up when I ask for recommendations. Really? I was surprised. My consulting firm had been operating for less than 3 months. Really? Trevor confirmed. I've heard you're brilliant with financial strategy, ethical to a fault, and not afraid to tell clients hard truths when necessary. Those are exactly the qualities I need right now. We spent the next hour discussing Hamilton Architecture's needs. Trevor was refreshingly straightforward about his company's strengths and weaknesses. He had the creative vision and the client relationships, but the financial side intimidated him. He needed systems, budgets, projections, all the things that made my brain light up with interest. I think I can help you, I said when we finished. Let me put together a proposal outlining my services and fees. I should have it to you by early next week. Perfect, Trevor said, standing up. I have a good feeling about this, Sienna. I think we'll work well together. After he left, Kelly poked her head in with a knowing smile. He seems nice. He's a potential client, I said firmly. He's also single, successful, and definitely looked at you like you were more than just a potential financial consultant, Kelly said, waggling her eyebrows. Kelly, I warned, but I was smiling despite myself. I'm just saying, Kelly said innocently. There's nothing wrong with noticing when an attractive, successful man is interested in you. I just got divorced 2 months ago, I reminded her. I'm not looking for anything romantic. I didn't say you had to marry him, Kelly said. Just maybe don't completely close yourself off to the possibility of friendship. Or more if it happens naturally. She left before I could respond, and I found myself thinking about her words. The truth was, I hadn't allowed myself to even think about dating or relationships. The divorce had left me raw and cautious, unwilling to trust anyone with my heart again. But Trevor had been kind and respectful. He had treated me as a professional equal, not as a woman to be managed or manipulated. And there had been something genuine in his smile, something that made me feel seen in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. I shook my head, focusing back on work. Kelly was getting ahead of herself. Trevor was a client, nothing more. Over the next few weeks, I put together a comprehensive financial plan for Hamilton Architecture. The work was challenging and satisfying, requiring me to dive deep into their business model, cash flow, and growth projections. Trevor was an engaged client, asking smart questions and actually implementing my suggestions rather than just nodding and ignoring them like some clients did. We met weekly to review progress, and I found myself looking forward to those meetings more than I probably should. Trevor had a way of making work feel less like work, cracking jokes during tense budget discussions and bringing coffee from my favorite shop without me having to ask. How did you know I liked this place? I asked one morning when he arrived with 2 cups from the little cafe 3 blocks away. I might have asked Kelly, Trevor admitted with a grin. I hope that's not creepy. I just figured if we're going to spend an hour talking about quarterly projections, we might as well have good coffee. Not creepy, I assured him. Thoughtful. One afternoon, after we finished a particularly productive session, Trevor hesitated at the door of my office. Can I ask you something personal? He said. And please tell me if I'm overstepping. Okay, I said cautiously. I read about your divorce in the business news. About what happened with your ex-husband's company and the fraud case. That must have been incredibly difficult. I'm just wondering, are you okay? Really okay? The question caught me off guard. Most people avoided mentioning the divorce, treating it like a shameful secret or painful wound that shouldn't be acknowledged. Trevor's directness was refreshing. I'm getting there, I said honestly. Some days are harder than others. But I'm building something new, something that's entirely mine. That helps. I went through something similar a few years ago, Trevor said quietly. Not fraud or anything that dramatic, but a relationship where I was manipulated and made to doubt my own judgment. It took me a long time to trust my instincts again, to believe I could recognize when someone was being genuine versus when they were playing games. How did you get past it? I asked. Therapy helped, Trevor said with a slight smile. Also time. And surrounding myself with good people who reminded me that not everyone is dishonest. Eventually, I started taking small risks again. Trusting a little bit, seeing how it felt. Building up my confidence slowly. That's good advice, I said. I hope it doesn't sound preachy, Trevor said. I just wanted you to know that I understand at least a little bit. And if you ever need to talk about it, not as a client but as someone who's been through similar stuff, I'm here. The offer touched me more than I expected. Thank you, Trevor. That means a lot. After he left, I sat in my office thinking about what he had said. Maybe Kelly was right. Maybe it was okay to be open to new friendships, new connections. Not romance necessarily, but genuine human interaction with someone who saw me as a person, not just as a cautionary tale or a victim to be pitied. My business continued to grow. Within 3 months of the divorce being finalized, I had 10 steady clients and had to hire 2 more consultants to keep up with demand. Jonathan had circled back about the partnership idea, and this time I was ready to seriously consider it. I've thought about your proposal, I told Jonathan over lunch one afternoon. I think it could work, but I have conditions. Name them, Jonathan said. First, we're equal partners. 50-50 ownership, 50-50 decision-making. I'm never going to be in a position again where someone else has final say over my livelihood. Agreed, Jonathan said immediately. Second, we put everything in writing. Partnership agreement, operating procedures, dispute resolution process. Everything documented and legal. Smart, Jonathan nodded. What else? Third, we build a company culture based on transparency and integrity. No cutting corners, no questionable practices, no prioritizing profit over doing the right thing. If we're going to do this, we do it ethically. Those are all conditions I can absolutely agree to, Jonathan said. Sienna, I want to build something we can be proud of. Something that proves you can be successful without compromising your values. We've both seen what happens when people prioritize money over integrity. I have no interest in repeating those mistakes. We shook hands across the table, and I felt a sense of rightness about the decision. This partnership felt different from my marriage to Gregory. It was based on mutual respect, clear communication, and shared values. It felt safe in a way that romance never had. Over the next month, Jonathan and I merged our consulting practices into a new firm, Brooks Pierce Consulting. The name made me happy every time I saw it on our new business cards. My name first, equal billing, a fresh start. Cameron helped us draw up the partnership agreement, making sure every detail was covered. Brielle threw us a launch party, inviting everyone who had supported me through the divorce. Even Trevor came, bringing a beautiful arrangement of flowers for the new office. Congratulations, Trevor said, handing me the flowers. I'm proud of you, Sienna. You took something terrible and turned it into something amazing. Thank you for being one of my first clients, I said. And for being so patient while I figured all this out. Are you kidding? Trevor laughed. Working with you has been the best business decision I've made in years. Hamilton Architecture's finances have never been more organized. I actually understand my own balance sheet now. As the party continued around us, Trevor and I stood by the windows looking out at the city lights. Can I tell you something? Trevor said after a moment. Sure. I know you just went through a difficult divorce. And I know you're focused on building your business right now. But I want you to know that I think you're amazing. Not just professionally but as a person. You're smart, resilient, kind, and you have this quiet strength that I really admire. My heart started beating faster. Trevor. I'm not asking for anything, Trevor said quickly. I'm not trying to pressure you or make things uncomfortable. I just wanted you to know that when you're ready, if you're ever ready to think about dating again or even just spending time with someone outside of work, I would really like to take you to dinner. As more than a client. As someone who genuinely enjoys your company and would like to get to know you better. I looked at him, this kind, genuine man who had treated me with respect from the moment we met. Who had never tried to manipulate me or make me doubt myself. Who saw my strength rather than my damage. Can I think about it? I asked. Take all the time you need, Trevor said with that easy smile. The offer stands whenever you're ready. And if you're never ready, that's okay too. I value your professional expertise too much to let my personal feelings mess that up. You're a good man, Trevor Hamilton, I said softly. I try, he replied. You deserve someone who's going to try. Someone who's going to see your worth and appreciate it every single day. After the party, Brielle helped me clean up the office while everyone else headed home. So, Brielle said casually, Trevor seems nice. Don't start, I warned, but I was smiling. I'm not starting anything, Brielle said innocently. I'm just observing that he looks at you the way a man should look at a woman he respects and admires. And maybe finds incredibly attractive. He asked me to dinner, I admitted. Brielle's eyes lit up. And I said I'd think about it. Sienna, you like him. I can tell. So what's holding you back? I sat down in one of the new office chairs, suddenly tired. Fear, I guess. Gregory destroyed my ability to trust my judgment about people. What if I'm wrong about Trevor? What if he's hiding something or playing some game I can't see? Or, Brielle said gently, sitting beside me, what if he's exactly who he appears to be? A good guy who likes you and wants to spend time with you? What if not everyone is Gregory? I know that intellectually, I said. But emotionally, I'm still scared. That's fair, Brielle acknowledged. You went through something traumatic. It makes sense that you're cautious. But Sienna, you can't let Gregory's betrayal stop you from ever taking chances again. That's letting him win. That's letting him control your life even though he's not in it anymore. She was right and I knew it. Gregory had taken enough from me. I wasn't going to let him take the possibility of future happiness too. What if I try? I said slowly. What if I say yes to dinner with Trevor and it goes badly? What if I can't let my guard down enough to even enjoy it? Then you try again with someone else or you take more time, Brielle said simply. But Sienna, you won't know unless you try. And Trevor seems worth trying for. I thought about it for several days, weighing my fear against the possibility of something good. I thought about Trevor's kindness, his respect, the way he had offered friendship without demanding anything in return. Finally, I called him. Trevor? It's Sienna. Hey, his voice was warm. How are you? I'm good. Listen, about that dinner offer. Are you free this Saturday? There was a brief pause, then Trevor's voice came back, clearly pleased. I'm free. Very free. Extremely free. I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in months. Saturday at 7? There's a new restaurant downtown I've been wanting to try. It's a date, Trevor said. I mean, if you're comfortable calling it that. If not, it's a friendly dinner between two professionals who happen to enjoy each other's company. Let's start with dinner and see where it goes, I said. Perfect, Trevor agreed. I'll pick you up at 7. After we hung up, I sat there with my phone in my hand, a smile on my face. It was just dinner. Nothing serious, nothing binding. Just two people sharing a meal and conversation. But it felt like more than that. It felt like a turning point. A moment where I chose to stop letting fear dictate my choices. A moment where I decided to be open to possibilities again. Saturday couldn't come fast enough. The Saturday dinner with Trevor turned out to be easier than I expected. We met at a small Italian restaurant that had opened recently, known for its authentic food and cozy atmosphere. Trevor arrived wearing a burgundy shirt that brought out the warm tones in his skin, looking nervous and excited in equal measure. You look beautiful, he said when he saw me. I had chosen a simple red dress, nothing too fancy, wanting to feel comfortable rather than overdressed. Thank you, I said. You clean up pretty well yourself. Dinner conversation flowed naturally. We talked about our families, our careers, our hopes for the future. Trevor told me about growing up in a small town, dreaming of becoming an architect, working his way through college while supporting his younger siblings. I told him about my journey from accountant to CFO to business owner, carefully editing around the painful parts of the divorce. You don't have to pretend it didn't happen, Trevor said gently when he noticed me glossing over details. I know about the trial. About what your ex-husband did. You can talk about it if you want to, or we can talk about other things. Either way is fine. His understanding made me relax. It's still hard to talk about sometimes, I admitted. Not because I'm sad about losing Gregory anymore, but because I'm angry at myself for not seeing the signs earlier. For being so trusting. Trust isn't a weakness, Trevor said firmly. Your ex-husband's betrayal says everything about his character and nothing about yours. You loved someone and believed in your partnership. That's honorable, not foolish. You really believe that? I know that, Trevor corrected. Sienna, I've spent the past few months working with you. I've seen how you operate, how you think, how you treat people. You're careful and thorough, but you're also willing to give people the benefit of the doubt until they prove they don't deserve it. That's not naivety. That's being a decent human being. We talked until the restaurant started closing, then walked slowly to where Trevor had parked his car. The autumn air was cool but not cold, and the city lights reflected off the buildings around us. I had a really good time tonight, Trevor said as we reached his car. Can we do this again? I'd like that, I said honestly. He drove me home to Brielle's house, where I had continued staying even after I could afford my own place. Brielle had insisted I take my time finding somewhere I really loved, and I hadn't wanted to rush into anything. At the door, Trevor hesitated. I'm not going to kiss you, he said. Not tonight. I want to, but I also want to take this slow. Let you set the pace. Is that okay? That's more than okay, I said, touched by his consideration. Thank you, Trevor. For dinner, for conversation, for being patient with me. You're worth being patient for, he said simply. I watched him drive away, then went inside to find Brielle waiting up in the living room, pretending to read a book. Don't even pretend you weren't waiting to hear how it went, I said, dropping onto the couch beside her. Brielle tossed the book aside with a grin. How did it go? Really well, I admitted. He's funny and kind and respectful. We talked for hours and it never felt forced or awkward. And he didn't try to kiss me. Is that good or bad? Brielle asked. Good, I said. He said he wanted to take things slow, let me set the pace. It felt like he was actually listening to what I need rather than pushing for what he wants. I like him, Brielle declared. Keep this one. It's one date, I protested, but I was smiling. Over the next few weeks, Trevor and I settled into an easy rhythm. We had dinner every week, sometimes at restaurants, sometimes cooking together at his place. We went to art galleries and museums, walked through parks, and talked about everything and nothing. He never pushed for more than I was ready to give, content to simply spend time together. And gradually, I found myself letting my guard down, trusting him with pieces of my story, my fears, my hopes for the future. Meanwhile, Natalie's criminal trial approached. Angela Torres had built an ironclad case, with Marcus Vance's testimony, the email evidence, Patricia's forensic accounting reports, and witness statements from multiple Morrison Enterprises employees. The trial is scheduled for 3 weeks from now, Angela told me during one of our prep meetings. You'll need to testify about discovering the fraud, your wrongful termination, and the impact it had on your life. Are you ready for that? I'm ready, I said. I want to face her. I want her to see that she didn't break me. The day of the trial arrived cool and overcast. I dressed carefully in a navy blue suit, wanting to look professional and composed. Trevor offered to come with me for support, but I declined. This was something I needed to do on my own. Cameron and Brielle both insisted on attending, sitting in the courtroom's public seating area. I spotted Jonathan there too, along with Rachel and 2 other former Morrison Enterprises employees who had agreed to testify. Natalie was led into the courtroom in handcuffs, wearing an orange jumpsuit. She looked smaller than I remembered, diminished. Her perfect hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, her makeup minimal. When her eyes met mine, I saw anger flash across her face, but I didn't look away. The prosecutor presented the case methodically, walking the jury through the scheme from start to finish. Marcus Vance's testimony was damning. He explained how he had met Natalie 5 years ago, how they had bonded over their shared resentment of the Morrison family, how they had carefully planned their revenge. It was supposed to be simple, Marcus said from the stand. Natalie gets hired, gains access to the accounts, steals the money, and disappears. But then she decided she wanted more. She wanted to destroy Gregory Morrison completely, ruin his marriage, destroy his wife's reputation. It became personal for her. When it was my turn to testify, I walked to the stand with my head high. The prosecutor asked me to describe the day I was fired, the accusations, my fight to clear my name. When Mr. Morrison fired you, the prosecutor asked, what did you think? I thought there must be some mistake, I said. I thought if I could just explain, show him the evidence of my innocence, he would realize he was wrong. It never occurred to me that he would simply believe the worst of me without question. How did that make you feel? Betrayed, I said simply. Not just by Natalie, who I barely knew, but by my husband. The man I had loved and trusted for 10 years chose to believe I was a criminal rather than investigate properly. That betrayal was worse than the false accusations. Natalie's lawyer tried to paint me as vindictive, suggesting I was exaggerating the emotional impact to gain sympathy. Isn't it true, Ms. Brooks, that you profited significantly from this situation? Your divorce settlement was quite generous, I understand. $12 million. I received what I was legally entitled to, I said calmly. Compensation for being wrongfully terminated and for the damage to my reputation. That's not profit. That's justice. And now you have a successful consulting business, built partially on the notoriety from this case. Would you have that success if none of this had happened? I would have had a different kind of success, I replied. I would have continued as CFO of Morrison Enterprises, a position I had earned through years of hard work. I would have had my marriage, my reputation intact, my life as I knew it. I didn't choose this path. It was forced on me by Ms. Chen's criminal actions. When I stepped down from the stand, I felt drained but satisfied. I had told my truth. Now it was up to the jury. The trial lasted a week. Witness after witness testified about Natalie's manipulation, her theft, her careful framing of me for her crimes. The evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for only 4 hours before returning with a verdict. On the count of fraud, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of embezzlement, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of conspiracy, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of identity theft, we find the defendant guilty. The verdicts continued, guilty on all counts. Natalie showed no emotion as they were read, just stared straight ahead with her jaw clenched. Ms. Chen, the judge said, you will be sentenced in 30 days. Until then, you will remain in custody. This court is adjourned. As Natalie was led away, she looked back at me one last time. I expected to see anger or hatred in her eyes. Instead, I saw something that looked almost like respect. A nod of acknowledgement between 2 women who had fought a war, where only one could win. I had won. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed again, but this time I was ready for them. Ms. Brooks, how do you feel about the verdict? I'm grateful that justice was served, I said clearly. Ms. Chen committed serious crimes that harmed not just me but many people. I hope this sends a message that such behavior has consequences. What's next for you? I'm focused on my consulting business and moving forward with my life. This chapter is closed now and I'm ready for what comes next. Trevor was waiting for me at the bottom of the courthouse steps. I had told him not to come, but I was glad he had ignored me. He pulled me into a hug and I let myself lean into him, feeling the tension of the past week finally release. "You were amazing," he said. "So strong and articulate. I'm proud of you." "It's over," I said, the words feeling surreal. "It's really over." "The bad part is over," Trevor corrected gently. "Now the good part begins." 6 months after Natalie's conviction, my life looked nothing like it had a year ago. Brooks Pierce Consulting had grown to 15 employees, with offices in 2 cities. Jonathan and I made a formidable team, our different strengths complementing each other perfectly. We had just landed a contract with a major nonprofit organization that would triple our revenue. "We need to hire more people," Jonathan said during one of our weekly partner meetings. "We're turning away good clients because we don't have the capacity." "I know," I agreed. "I've been interviewing candidates all week. I think I found 3 strong possibilities for the financial analysis team." "How's the Hamilton architecture project going?" Jonathan asked with a knowing smile. "I hear you and Trevor have been spending a lot of time together." "Strictly professional, I'm sure." "Mind your business," I said, but I was smiling. Trevor and I had been dating officially for 4 months now, taking things slowly but steadily. He had met Brielle, who had given him her enthusiastic approval. He had met Cameron, who had grilled him about his intentions until I had to physically drag my lawyer out of the room. And gradually, carefully, I had let myself trust him. Trust that his kindness was genuine, that his respect for me was real, that not every man would betray me the way Gregory had. "I'm happy for you," Jonathan said sincerely. "You deserve good things, Sienna. You've earned them." My phone buzzed with a text from Brielle. "Emergency girls' night tonight. My place at 7. Bring wine." I smiled and texted back, "What's the emergency?" "I'll explain tonight. Just come." That evening, I arrived at Brielle's house to find her practically vibrating with excitement. "What's going on?" I asked, setting down the wine I'd brought. "I have news," Brielle said, her eyes sparkling. "Big news. Life-changing news. You're pregnant." I guessed. "What?" "No. Better. Well, different. I got offered a position as head nurse in the new pediatric wing at the hospital. It's a huge promotion, more money, more responsibility. Everything I've been working toward." "Brielle, that's amazing." I pulled her into a hug. "Congratulations. You totally deserve it." "There's more," Brielle said, pulling back with a slightly worried expression. "The job comes with housing. A really nice apartment right near the hospital. Which is great for me, but it means I need to find my own place," I finished, understanding. "Brielle, that's completely fine. I've been staying here way too long anyway. You've been so generous letting me camp out in your guest room for 8 months. "You haven't been camping," Brielle protested. "You've been living here because you're my best friend and you needed a safe place after everything that happened. But yes, I think it's time for both of us to move forward into our next chapters." "Agreed," I said. "I've actually been looking at apartments. There's a great place downtown close to the office. I just wasn't sure I was ready to take that step." "Are you ready now?" Brielle asked. I thought about it. My business was thriving. My divorce was finalized. Natalie was in prison. I was dating someone who treated me with genuine respect and affection. I had proven to myself and the world that I could survive the worst and come out stronger. "Yeah," I said slowly. "I think I am ready. Ready for my own space, my own fresh start." 2 weeks later, I signed the lease on a beautiful 1-bedroom apartment with huge windows and a view of the city. It was smaller than the penthouse I had shared with Gregory, but infinitely more mine. Every piece of furniture I chose myself. Every decoration reflected my taste alone. Trevor helped me move in along with Brielle, Cameron, and Jonathan. We assembled furniture, hung pictures, and ordered far too much pizza. As I stood in my new living room surrounded by boxes and the people who had stood by me through everything, I felt genuinely happy. "Speech," Brielle called out, raising her glass of wine. "No speeches," I protested. "Just a short one," Cameron encouraged. "Come on, Sienna." I sighed but stood up, looking at the faces of my chosen family. "Okay." A year ago, my life fell apart in ways I never could have imagined. I lost my job, my marriage, my reputation. I thought I had lost everything. But standing here now, I realize I didn't lose everything. I lost one version of my life, and in its place I built something better. Something more authentic and true to who I really am. I paused, my throat tight with emotion. I couldn't have done any of it without you. Brielle, you gave me a home when I needed one most. Cameron, you fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself. Jonathan, you risked your own career to tell the truth. And Trevor. I looked at him, this man who had shown me that not everyone would betray my trust. Thank you for being patient, for being kind, for reminding me that I could trust again. To new beginnings, Brielle said, raising her glass higher. To new beginnings, everyone echoed. That night, after everyone had left, Trevor stayed behind to help me unpack. We worked in comfortable silence, finding places for kitchen items and organizing my new closet. This is nice, Trevor said, looking around. The apartment. It suits you. Thanks for helping me move, I said. You didn't have to spend your whole Saturday hauling boxes. I wanted to, Trevor said simply. He hesitated, then added, Sienna, can I ask you something? Of course. We've been dating for 4 months now. And it's been great. Better than great. But I feel like you're still holding back sometimes, like you're waiting for me to disappoint you or betray you. And I understand why. Given what you've been through, it makes perfect sense. But I need to know, do you think you'll ever be able to fully trust me? Or will there always be part of you that's waiting for the other shoe to drop? The question was fair, and I owed him an honest answer. I'm working on it, I said. Every day I trust you a little more. The voice in my head that says everyone will eventually betray me gets a little quieter. But you're right, I'm still scared sometimes. Scared of being wrong about someone again. I can't promise I'll never hurt you, Trevor said. Nobody can promise that. People make mistakes, disappoint each other, have misunderstandings. But I can promise that I will never deliberately betray you. I will never lie to you or manipulate you or make you doubt your own judgment. And if I do make a mistake, I will own it and work to fix it. That's all I can ask for, I said quietly. Trevor pulled me into a hug and I let myself relax into his arms. This felt different from what I had with Gregory. Steadier, safer, built on genuine respect rather than convenience or habit. I'm falling in love with you, Trevor said softly. I need you to know that. I'm not asking you to say it back. I just want you to know where I stand. My heart pounded, but not from fear. From hope. From the terrifying, exhilarating possibility of letting myself love someone again. I'm falling too, I admitted. It scares me, but I'm falling. Trevor pulled back to look at me, his eyes warm. We'll fall together then. And I promise to catch you if you stumble. He kissed me then, gentle and sweet, and I kissed him back, letting myself be present in the moment rather than worrying about the future. The following week brought unexpected news. Angela Torres called to tell me that Gregory had requested to meet with me. Why? I asked immediately. He says he wants to apologize in person. To take responsibility for what he did without any lawyers or formal proceedings. He's been in therapy, apparently working through his issues. His therapist suggested he make amends to the people he hurt. I don't want to see him, I said automatically. I told him you would probably say that, Angela said. But he asked me to pass along the message anyway. He said he understands if you refuse, but if you're willing, he would appreciate the opportunity to say what he needs to say. I thought about it for a long time. Did I need to hear Gregory apologize? Did it matter at this point? I had moved on, built a new life, found happiness without him. But a part of me was curious. Curious about whether he had actually changed, whether he understood the full extent of what he had done, whether his regret was genuine or just another manipulation. I'll meet with him, I finally decided. But in a public place, and Cameron comes with me. Fair enough, Angela said. I'll set it up. The meeting was scheduled for the following Saturday at a neutral coffee shop. Gregory was already there when Cameron and I arrived, sitting at a corner table with his hands wrapped around a coffee cup. He looked different. Thinner, with more gray in his hair. Older. Sienna, he stood up when he saw me. Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't, I said, sitting down across from him. Cameron took a seat beside me, a silent reminder that I wasn't alone in this. I'll get straight to the point, Gregory said. I asked to meet with you because I owe you an apology. Not a lawyer-approved statement or a carefully worded public relations response, but a real apology from the man who destroyed your trust and nearly destroyed your life. He took a deep breath. I was a coward and a fool. I let myself be manipulated because it was easier than facing uncomfortable truths about myself. Natalie made me feel important and needed in ways that fed my ego, and I chose that temporary validation over the real partnership we had built together. When she presented me with evidence against you, I wanted to believe it because believing it meant I didn't have to face my own failings. I listened without interrupting, keeping my expression neutral. I know saying sorry doesn't fix anything, Gregory continued. I know I can't undo the damage I caused. But I need you to know that I understand now what I did. How badly I betrayed you, how completely I failed as a husband and a partner. I've spent the past 6 months in therapy, working through my issues with trust, control, and ego. And one thing has become crystal clear. I let the best thing in my life slip away because I was too arrogant to see what I had. Why are you telling me this? I asked quietly. Because you deserve to hear it, Gregory said. Because you deserve to know that what happened wasn't your fault. You didn't fail our marriage. I did. And I want you to be able to move forward knowing that truth absolutely. We sat in silence for a moment. I searched his face for signs of manipulation or hidden agenda, but all I saw was genuine regret. Thank you for saying that, I said finally. It does help a little. But Gregory, you need to understand something. Your apology doesn't change what happened. It doesn't erase the pain or the damage. And it doesn't mean I forgive you because I'm not there yet. Maybe someday, but not now. I understand, Gregory said. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just needed you to know that I see now what I couldn't see then. And I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. I stood up, ready to leave. I hope you find peace with what you did. I hope therapy helps you become a better person. But my life has moved on without you in it, and that's where it's going to stay. You look happy, Gregory said, and there was no bitterness in his voice. That's good. You deserve happiness. I am happy, I confirmed. I built something good from the ashes of what you destroyed. And I'm proud of that. Cameron and I left the coffee shop together and I felt lighter somehow. Gregory's apology hadn't changed anything fundamental, but it had given me closure. Confirmation that I hadn't been crazy or wrong to trust him originally. He had simply failed to live up to that trust. How do you feel? Cameron asked as we walked to our cars. Okay, I said, surprised to realize it was true. I actually feel okay. 3 months later, Brooks Pierce Consulting celebrated its first anniversary with a party at our office. 50 people crammed into our space, clients and employees and friends, all celebrating what we had built together. Speech time. Jonathan called out, tapping his glass to get everyone's attention. You're obsessed with speeches, I told him, but I stood up anyway. The room quieted, all eyes on me. 1 year ago, I was at the lowest point of my life. I had been fired, accused of crimes I didn't commit, and was fighting to rebuild my reputation from scratch. I started this consulting firm not because I had some grand business plan, but because I needed something to hold on to. Something that was entirely mine that nobody could take away. I paused, looking around at the faces watching me. My employees who had taken a chance on a new company. My clients who had trusted me with their businesses. My friends and family who had never doubted me. This company became more than just a business. It became proof that you can survive the worst and build something beautiful from the ruins. It became a symbol of resilience and integrity and refusing to give up even when everything seems impossible. And I couldn't have done any of it without every single person in this room. Trevor caught my eye from across the room and I smiled at him. So thank you, I continued. Thank you for believing in me, for supporting this crazy venture, for being part of this journey. Here's to the past year and to many more successful years ahead. Everyone raised their glasses and the celebration continued. Later, when things had quieted down, Trevor found me standing by the windows looking out at the city. Happy? He asked, slipping his arm around my waist. Very, I said, leaning into him. A year ago, I never could have imagined feeling this content. This settled in my own skin. You've come a long way, Trevor observed. From the cautious woman I first met to the confident business owner standing here now. I had good people helping me along the way, I said, turning to look at him. Especially one particularly patient architect who refused to give up on me even when I was a mess. You were never a mess, Trevor said. You were someone healing from trauma. There's a difference. Trevor, I said, taking a breath, I love you. I should have said it sooner, but I was scared. I'm not scared anymore. His face lit up with a smile that made my heart skip. I love you too. For months now. I was just waiting for you to catch up. He kissed me then, right there by the windows with our friends and colleagues celebrating around us, and I felt genuinely, completely happy. Not the naive happiness of my marriage to Gregory, built on assumptions and unexamined trust. But the deeper happiness of having survived the worst, learned the lessons, and chosen to be open to love anyway. The past year had taken everything from me and then forced me to rebuild from nothing. But in that rebuilding, I had discovered strengths I never knew I possessed. I had learned to trust my judgment again, to set boundaries, to demand respect rather than simply hoping for it. I had learned that some betrayals are so profound they can never be repaired, and that was okay. Not every relationship was meant to last forever. Some were meant to teach you lessons, even painful ones. I had learned that success built on your own terms, with your own values, was more satisfying than any borrowed glory or reflected achievement. Most importantly, I had learned that you could survive the unthinkable and come out stronger on the other side. That resilience wasn't about never falling down, but about getting back up every single time, even when it seemed impossible. My phone buzzed with a text from Brielle. Just saw the photos from your party on Instagram. You look radiant. Proud of you, girl. I smiled and texted back, couldn't have done it without you. Because that was the truth. I hadn't survived this alone. I had been carried by the people who loved me, supported by those who believed in my innocence when everyone else doubted, lifted up by genuine friendships that had proven stronger than my broken marriage ever was. As the party wound down and people started heading home, I took one last look around my office. The space I had created, the business I had built, the life I had reclaimed. It wasn't perfect. I still had moments of doubt, flashes of anger about what Gregory had done, occasional nightmares about being back in that courtroom fighting for my reputation. But those moments were getting fewer and farther between. The scar tissue was forming, tough and resilient. I was healing, truly healing, not just covering wounds with bandages and pretending they weren't there. Ready to go? Trevor asked, appearing beside me with my coat. Yeah, I said, taking one last look around. I'm ready. We walked out of the office together into the cool evening air. The city stretched out before us, full of lights and possibilities and the promise of tomorrow. Gregory had tried to destroy me. Natalie had framed me. Together, they had nearly succeeded in ruining everything I had worked for. But I had survived. More than survived, I had thrived. And that was the sweetest revenge of all. Not in seeing them suffer, but in proving that their betrayal couldn't keep me down. In building something better without them, something that was entirely, authentically mine. The story could have ended with me broken, bitter, unable to trust anyone again. But I had chosen a different ending. An ending where I emerged stronger, wiser, surrounded by people who genuinely cared about me, doing work I was proud of. I had taken my worst experience and transformed it into my greatest strength. And that made all the pain, all the struggle, all the difficult months of rebuilding, absolutely worth it.